Interesting fake and whip. It's a touchdown to Ben Sims. Just love the poise of this young quarterback.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Jerome Ford, big seam. Jerome Ford is revving and tearing it up. Touchdown, Cincinnati, 79 yards.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Rising, wheel route, end zone, throw, fingertip catch, touchdown! Micah Bernard playing both ways and making a spectacular touchdown reception.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Throws it down the field. It's caught at the 10, and this game is over. The Cowboys win it. C.D. Lamb.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, full throttle here in the studio, and also some stories, including a tough day today for Wake Forest football, and they're starting in star quarterback with Sam Hartman. We'll hear today from Connor O'Neill, who covers Wake Forest, about the Sam Hartman story. Also, the chat room is already up and running. Text line with any questions, comments, opinions, 254-339-1122. We're pretty wide open in this opening hour. We'll hear from Connor O'Neill on Wake Forest at 4:15. Also, Travis Roeder, Sikkim 365 football analyst, on just what he has seen, just a handful of minutes of watching practice today. Also today, we'll have John Machota covers the Cowboys in the 5 o'clock hour, and also Jason Shear, Wildcat Authority, giving us a little bit more from his thoughts of anything Pac-12, Arizona, etc. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and I'm David Smoak. So here's the story today that came down this morning. Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman out for an extended period of time for a non-football related medical condition. Praying everything is okay first and foremost. And then also a couple of quotes. This one from the head coach and Dave Clawson about Hartman, the true embodiment of a leader. Off his record-breaking seasons, one of the reasons they're ranked, one of the reasons they played last year, and of course had a hell of a year. We look forward to toward the bottom, we look forward to having Sam back on the field as soon as he can. In the meantime, Sam and his family have the full support of our coaching staff and program in his recovery. And then a quote from Hartman. Tuesday was a frustrating day, but I'm extremely grateful. Medical staff for Dr. Chris Miles, Niles Fleet, for staying with me throughout this process. I look forward to attacking the rehab process. I'm so appreciative of the support I have received from my family, teammates, and coaches.
Yeah, this is big not only for Sam Hartman's football future. I mean, he's certainly an NFL prospect this year probably, and now, we'll see if he's back at Wake Forest at any point or not. But this is big for Wake Forest in that, even the best teams, when you lose your starting quarterback, the deep teams like Ohio State still have, there's still some recoil you have to deal with when it comes to, building new offense. I mean, I guess the silver lining is that it happened early in camp, so whoever is taking over as the starting quarterback for Wake Forest can build that up, and that offense is one of those under Dave Clawson that is going to score a lot regardless. But Sam Hartman was excellent. He's maybe the best quarterback they've ever had, at Wake Forest, and I don't want to leave him to be out there, but he's pretty high up there, and he absolutely is a huge loss for a team that was looking to contend for the ACC title again.
Well, I mean, they know who's taking over. It's Michael Kern, and he's thrown all of 5 passes for 67 yards. So 2 of 5 for 67 yards is their starting quarterback's returning numbers from going into this year. So, yeah, this is a massive loss for Wake Forest. They don't get to the ACC championship last year without him. They don't, dazzle and surprise last year without him. To find out just 3 weeks or so before the season starts is brutal. And yet not knowing what the actual issue is health-wise, I'm sure whatever he's dealing with is far more brutal than anybody else's, feelings towards it or reactions towards it. So, I just hope it's not anything too serious. To where, this is something that lingers for a long time with him, and that's just something that's hopefully precautionary more than anything. But, we have no idea, and it just sucks, man. It sucks to have to put in all of that work, and have the great year that you had last year and have all that hype about coming back and all the promise and potential. And then, go through an offseason and boom, all of a sudden you get right into the verge of being able to go out there and do your thing, and it gets taken away from you for whatever unknown reason. So, brutal for Wake Forest and particularly for Sam Hartman.
Yeah, you do feel for him, and so we wish him the best moving forward as he battles whatever he dealt with earlier today. I did see this, and I sent both of you this. This was from MacRumors.com, Paul. That's Mac is a laptop, I heard, right?
Yes.
Pretty good one.
There's one on either side of you right now.
Yeah, both of them pretty damn good. Mine, of course, is an ancient dinosaur, later than even older than a typewriter.
Runs on Steam.
Apple could ink deal for Big Ten streaming rights. Apple's in talks to secure a deal with Big Ten college football, basketball streaming, according to The Athletic. Both Apple and Amazon are said to be vying for the streaming rights. We've discussed them and the possibilities before. Apple joining the negotiations following the news of USC, UCLA joining the Big Ten in 2024.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Apple's sports strategy is going forward. They actually have a really good streaming service with the original program they offer. They're kind of different than Netflix in that Netflix threw out a bunch of stuff, and then the good stuff, like Stranger Things, stuck to the wall, and then they had a lot of other stuff, kind of peter out. Apple is pretty much being very selective with what they're doing and just putting, stuff that like Ted Lasso and Severance that are getting, a lot of raves. So I'm curious to see what they do to move into the sports space past the MLS and past, the Friday Night Baseball, because those things seem like they're kind of dipping their toe in the water and not going full tilt. And the one thing we know about Apple is that money isn't an option. I mean, their market cap is bigger than the GDP of most countries in the world. So they don't have to worry about money. Like if they can write off anything. So if Big Ten football didn't work out for them, they'd be like, oh, well, that was a fun 5 years. Let's move on. It's not going to make or break them. So, I just wonder how deep they want to get into that, or if they wind up getting into it all, or if Apple's being mentioned just so that the other people in the interest in streaming, like Peacock or Paramount Plus, come harder to the table to make sure it's on their app and not Apple.
Apple has been investing heavily in live sports recent months to increase the appeal. Apple TV Plus launched Friday Night Baseball in partnership with Major League Baseball, and in 2023 will be exclusive home of Major League Soccer. And even the rumors Apple pursuing the National Football League Sunday ticket package. They've done that at least apparently in the past, discussing the deal, a content deal also with the Pac-12. So that will be interesting to see what happens there.
Every time I hear Stranger Things mentioned, I can't help but always remember that Millie Bobby Brown had one of the worst acting performances I've ever seen in a Godzilla movie. Think about that, a Godzilla movie, and it stood out that was that bad. And I'll never get over just watching that movie and shaking my head like, this is the worst acting performance I think I've ever seen in my life. As far as Apple goes, I mean, I think they're clearly in sports. I mean, they're invested in sports, and to what degree they want to get involved with, college football remains to be seen. I have to say, Kevin Warren's done a masterful job of kind of playing everybody. And by the way, if I'm talking weird, my mouth's numb. I was at the dentist earlier today, so if anybody picks up on that, it feels weird talking. So
it sounds okay.
Okay. But I appreciate what he's done. I think he's done a hell of a job PR-wise in really, making the Big Ten the talk of the town, and clearly is going to get them a boatload of money. But they're starting to drag it out to the point now where I'm getting kind of like sick and tired of hearing about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, announce your deal. I get why. I get that there's gamesmanship, as Mack Rhodes said. I get that there's like Mack Rhodes said yesterday, he's not believing anything until he sees a deal officially on paper, because for all he knows, Kevin Warren and the Big Ten are just trying to get ESPN to go, wait a second, we do need the Big Ten, because people, put pressure on them to feel the need to carry the Big Ten. But we've been talking for weeks now about what this could be, what this could look like, what it could do. And I'm interested in the expansion part of it. But as far as the TV deal part of it, okay, it's over $1 billion. Okay, it's primarily going to be on, 3 over-the-air networks. We know there's a streaming component. I'm sure that's going to be announced soon. But now I just want to know. Now I'm tired of talking about, what it could be. Just tell me what your deal is so the rest of the world can move on. But I know that's not what they want to do.
Yeah, and here's another thing. And we got Bob Thompson, who's become someone we've been able to lean on, the former Fox Sports executive who was on with us for a couple of days in a row. One of the things that he kind of said, and I got to give my buddy Rick, who's someone very much entrenched into the ACC and again, into NASCAR and much more. We keep hearing this number that the Big Ten is going to give each team over $100 million apiece. We have heard that, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to read the text he sent me last night?
I don't. Yeah. Well. What was the bottom line to the text?
So he listened to our segment and he said, "I agree with you that the numbers are pretty much where everybody expected to be. $1.25 billion divided by 16 is $78 million per school per year. Probably starts closer to 73 or 74 million per year, and then annually
the 3 to 4%
escalate.
Yeah. And so what he's saying at 1.25 billion, and you kind of just hear this, well, okay, that's $100 million, and that's something that happened back when USC and UCLA, that story popped. It might not. If it is, that's great. It's great for everybody inside the Big Ten, but it's like that number just stuck, and it's almost like it's just there. And yet, if you break down the numbers, that doesn't mean there's not other revenue. But if you break down the numbers, as Bob was telling us, it's somewhere in that lower to mid, eventually upper 70 million, which is still fantastic. But it's almost like we're going from 50, 60, 70 to 100 million. And yes, there's a lot of new TV deals that are going to be negotiated and announced here pretty soon, including the Big Ten at some point. And he just kind of said, wait a minute, let's tap the brakes on the $100 million, because I have not seen really that anywhere, but we have. We've heard that, discussed it, have even seen columns written about it.
But $78 million, now I guess it's kind of a good news.
I'm not turning it down.
No, it's a good news, bad news thing for everybody else. So say you're the ACC and the gap is not $60 million, it's $40 million. So maybe that's some that you can make up. Same with right now. So the Big 12 just did what, 42.6 million.
The highest one they've had, 42.6.
So that's a $30 million chasm. So it's not as bad as a $50 to $55 million chasm that they were going to have to overcome. But it's still a chasm. It's still a pretty big one.
It was going to be almost 2.5 times if you got to the 100 million per school. And Rick told me this even several weeks ago. He said, just watch out for that number now. It kind of got tossed out there and everybody just gobbled it up. And who knows what it eventually is going to be, but it's going to be interesting because I don't know if Kevin Warren ever was quoted or ever said that it would be $100 million, or if that was somebody, just people started writing that and running with it when they saw $2.25 billion or $2.5 billion. And even some of you have sent in text messages and said, hey, that doesn't add up. That math does not add up.
Well, that's what I was saying yesterday, that something doesn't add up. And you're saying, no, the numbers are right. And I'm like, man, something's just not clicking with me here. Like it seemed like a lot for that one particular, the 330 window, just for that alone. I mean, I get it, but that was a huge chunk of money. And
in that 350 or so million for that, 350 some million for the other, 300 something million for the other. That's a
streaming.
billion.
I mean, 2 streaming partners probably. So I'm like, geez, Louise, for these, just that's why I'm saying there has to be something else here. I mean, this can't just be this much for all this. But I guess, hey, if that's what people are willing to pay for it.
But even then, that $100 million was a lot for me a year, because I just wondered with every school's getting $100 million on the backs of about 5 schools in their television ratings. Everybody else, and we've seen this. I mean, we could do the same. I don't know this to be a fact just off the top of my head, but based on all the research people like Sam Bradshaw and Tony and Altamore have done for us and shown, like, if you really break down the factors, if you take out, the Titans, the real ratings draws, there's not much of a difference in the ratings between a Washington and an Indiana, or a Washington and a Baylor, or a Washington and somebody else. They're all within the kind of like a standard deviation of each other. So that's why I was never like, you're going to pay $100 million, and some of that's going to be Illinois versus Indiana games like that aren't going to get ratings. I'm not trying to knock them. I'm just saying the simple fact of the matter is those are two teams that are usually 4 and 6 when they play each other, and that's not a huge ratings game.
One of the things that Sam Bradshaw, and Sam is on sometimes to break down games and opponents coming up, and he'll do that during the season, as will Travis, among others, is and Football Bob. One of the things that he's trying to do and try to explain, and it's helped me because I need like crayons and a chalkboard, big letters and pictures. You can sit there and say that any conference has this many number of 2 million viewers or a million viewers or whatever. But it also, part of that comparison, and what Sam keeps trying to explain is, when is the game? And who else is playing at that particular time? Or are there even any games being played really at that particular time that can affect how many are watching your game?
I don't have an exact date, but I know this is like in some form or fashion happened to like this sort of extent. But if I had $1 for every Pac-12 fan I've seen hang an 11 o'clock at night Washington State rating of over 1 million over an Oklahoma State game at like 2:30 that was also going up against like Georgia A&M, or and like I know they haven't played, but you know what I'm saying. But like those are the types of games that are being played during the day. Well,
there's also 20 other games they can watch.
And there's a bunch of others, yeah. Like there's all this other stuff going on, and when I get home after a Baylor game, a primetime game, and there's nothing else on. It's literally whatever Pac-12 game there is. That's it. Like there may be a random Toledo contest or something that's like a replay on like ESPN Ocho or something.
A rain delay.
Or like something. But other than that, it's just the Pac-12 game, and that is it. So yeah, I would hope that no matter how late it is, for college football junkies, you could pull a higher rating than the contest that is going up against, 5, 10, 15 other games all at the same time. Like, that's just common sense, but I keep seeing that, and you would think that if you're going to brag about it, it would be like this massive gulf, and it's maybe in some cases like the example is like a couple 100,000 people, and you're comparing a 2:30 game to a solo broadcast on ESPN that's by itself.
Okay, so if you say it is 200,000 people that's better on that game than the Oklahoma State game. If you were to tell a network, listen, we can't cancel this sitcom because 200,000 people watch it, they would laugh in your face. They'd be like, okay, that's cute. So that number, that difference is, it's negligible for them. They want, again, the networks, I use this term a lot, they hunt whales. They're not trying to get crappie. They're trying to get whales. Yeah. So they want big swings at big numbers.
Devil Frog, F-R-A-W-G. Paul is right. We know less than 24 teams account for about half the viewership in college football. This reinforces the value in numbers theory. Networks value live power sports content.
Yeah.
And if you'll remember, even back after the Texas and Oklahoma story popped in late July of a year ago, one of the items and one of the topics and one of the nuggets, bullet points that we kept telling you, that even when things look bleak and the Big 12 was on the canvas, one of the things that still is very important and one of the things that they could bring to the table was live content. People have to fill their time. And so, but the $100 million was just kind of like it was thrown out there. And if the Big Ten's deal secures $100 million for all of them, including the incoming schools, which they're too valuable, that's great. But that number just kind of like, that's it. And it does appear as if it might start more into the mid 70 million per school, which is still fantastic, and then eventually get to that point.
Yeah, and I also think it's only fair. You know, I've seen the comment, oh, they're Big 12 guys or whatever. Like, and I don't have an allegiance like that. If the Pac-12 or whoever had a clear advantage on something, I'll say that. I don't care. I don't lie to myself to convince myself my side always wins. But, you know, I do think that there is a lot of media backing, too, to the Big Ten as well. I mean, a number of the media are from Big Ten. And I'm not saying like conspiracy theory, but when you talk about the media and the way it's portrayed, and it's $100 million, and let's just run with that, and let's not even. I think some of that is playing into the hand that there is a lot of media that's Big Ten connected. Or
would Kevin Warren be like, no? Of course he's going to let that number go.
Yeah,
he wants it in the ether,
and I don't think many people are questioning it. Obviously, so you know, I think there is something to that, But regardless, it doesn't really matter because $70 million or $80 million or $90 million or whatever they're getting is still going to be significantly better than everybody else for the most part.
Yeah, and I'll put the conference versus conference rating numbers in an NFL's perspective because they wouldn't do this. But let's just take the AFC South, which is Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Houston, and who am I leaving? And Tennessee. Okay, so you've got some. Tennessee is good. Indianapolis is okay. Houston and Jacksonville are bad. They have one kind of Super Bowl contender in there last year, and that was Tennessee. And then, of course, they were the number 1 seed. So that's a good team. And then let's say that their matchups that year were against, which I think they are actually this year, against the NFC East. And they said, we had, in the AFC South, we had 4 of the highest rated games on television this year. Well, yeah, you played the Cowboys. The Cowboys are the highest rated team. Mm-hmm. Just like if, your conference plays Ohio State and we said we had 4 of the highest rated games, yeah, you played Ohio State. People watch those. So don't let that, that skews the numbers in a certain favor.
But that also plays into the inside Big 12 sentiment because you point at the biggest numbers and it's all when they play Oklahoma and Texas.
And what Sam's done and even others have tried to do, whether it's John Wilner or whoever else, they're trying to also separate those teams from the picture and who was what and when and where when you didn't have them, or USC and UCLA. One of the other things about the NFC East, if I believe correctly, when they released the most valuable franchises lately, 4 of the top 6 were the NFC East.
Yeah.
Philly, New York, of course, the Cowboys at the top, Washington as well, despite their incompetence that they've had for many, many years. Thank you. A lot of you already going here.
Point being, we need to hear this damn deal that the Big Ten's got so that we can answer some questions.
Kevin, Warren, hey.
I mean, really, okay, is it $100 million? Is it more? Is it less? Does it include the teams that are all involved right now and the 2 LA schools? Or does it include something beyond that? Is there a hook in there so that if it does include just those schools for now, and 2 years from now you decide, hey, there's a couple schools that we want to entice to come join us, is there a way to work around it so that, the numbers change and it's not like a big issue with the TV contract? I mean, there's thing after thing after thing, because until the Big Ten announces their deal and until they really kind of plant their flag and put their intentions out there, you are having to wonder about every scenario under the sun if you're the Pac-12 or the Big 12 in particular. And, then you got Jack Swarbrick's lengthy comments today, and that's not exactly fanning the flames a ton or causing too much more concern, but it's very clear there's a line that's been drawn, and Notre Dame's choosing to straddle that line right now and will for as long as they want to, quite frankly, until they feel forced otherwise. But, yeah, if you're the Pac and Big 12 in particular, you just need to see, and really the Pac especially because they're the ones that are coming up next, you need to see this deal get done and finalized so we have some semblance of an idea of what the landscape actually looks like and not what the Big Ten offices are feeding us or Kevin Warren's feeding us or whoever's feeding us, as accurate or not as that may be. Right now, until it's ink dried, it's just speculation.
Well, yeah, and the $2.5 billion has been thrown out, or $2 billion. And again, all the details in between all that could be. And no matter what, it's a damn good deal.
Yeah.
It's just we have just accepted whatever reason that it's $100 million per school, and that might be in year 3, 4, or 5 of the deal, and it might be year 1, or it may never be that.
Kevin Warren has managed to do what, American Idol, where they stop singing, an hour into the 2-hour show, and then they manage to get 5 more commercial breaks in before they actually eliminate somebody. Nobody's singing anymore, but they're going to do more show. That's exactly what he's doing right now, where we don't know what the deal is, but man, they're drawing it out.
Unless there is something that's in the works. And that's what I mean. Like, until they freaking put that deal out there, we don't know. Do we know if Oregon and Washington are going to be in the pack of the Big Ten? Or, we don't know until he puts that deal out there. And I know that people on the West Coast can say, oh, well, nothing's happening. Again, until I see the Big Ten say, this is our conference, these 16 teams, thanks to USC and UCLA, and this is what it's going to be. And, hey, if there's a time in the future where inevitably we decide to expand further, whether that's towards the East Coast, as some speculate, or whether that's further out west to accommodate the LA schools, which if you even read that, like USC, if you read some people, doesn't even want extra schools from the West Coast, right? So you can take just that topic alone, and there's people, they need more West Coast schools. They've got to make travel easier for USC and UCLA. Read another guy. USC doesn't want Oregon in the Big Ten with them. Why would they give up that advantage and allow Oregon to basically have the LA market like they've had it all these years? So, truth will come out eventually. I think there are little slices of truth that have come out here and there, and there's a whole lot of other like PR manipulation and then also speculation, and we're part of that as well. But that's going to continue, and the fear for some is going to continue until they know what the landscape looks like. And right now, as we pointed out, it's still very fuzzy, even though there were, victory laps being ran 2 nights ago because apparently, the Big Ten had come to some sort of a deal. But here we are, and nothing much has changed, quite frankly. And it doesn't look like it's on the verge of changing, in the next day or two either. So, yeah.
All right. From a couple of the text messages, this from the 253, with NBC being included in the Big Ten media deal, that leads me to believe that they will also help the Big Ten land not just Notre Dame, but how about the possibility of Washington, Oregon, Stanford as well? That we discussed that quite a bit yesterday. But, yes, the NBC nugget or the attachment of NBC with that deal has opened up the speculation again about Notre Dame. When I've talked to those who cover Notre Dame, they don't really feel that way. It just happens to be a network that they're on being attached to a Big Ten network that might be in a feeding frenzy, or at least might be looking for the whale, as you mentioned, not a network, but a conference which has the power to be a whale. How
does Jack Swarbrick feel about it? How about I read you his comments from today? Because, again, like he did talk today. How about the recent announcement the last couple of days about the big impact of the Big Ten's recent media rights package? The question was asked. Jack Swarbrick of Notre Dame. With the caveat that they haven't formally announced it, I think it's great. So even he's waiting. That's what I mean, is everybody's waiting. We've all heard the talk.
Which is what Max
announced
said
the freaking deal. Yeah, but with the caveat that they haven't formally announced it, I think it's great. Talking about the Big Ten, I think it's great for college football. They made a decision to have 3 linear broadcast partners in Fox, who will principally have the big noon game, CBS, who will have the 3:30 kick, and NBC, who will have the primetime kick. The more broadcasters, major networks we keep involved in college football, the better it is for everybody. Because they're invested, they want to promote the game, they want additional properties. So I think it was a brilliant strategy by Commissioner Warren. I think it played out marvelously for him. The timing could not have been better, and I think when they finally announce the number, it will be a pretty amazing one, but it's also perfect for Notre Dame. We need NBC to have more college football to more effectively promote our games and to talk about our games and to have NBC be seen in that light. So that was great for us that they got a big piece of this.
Yeah. So they're either going to be leading into, because sometimes they'll be the game in prime time, and they'll have to, I know that they'll probably have to flip that and massage that, but and maybe some of those games will be on their other television partner, but Notre Dame is going to be a lead-in to a Big Ten primetime game all the time, and the Big Ten doesn't even need them in the conference or to share any money with them. They can just draft off of it. That's another brilliant thing about this, is that if Notre Dame plays at 3:30 Eastern and you're going to follow that game up almost every single week, that is a boon, because you can't get that. That's, that'd be like playing after the Cowboys every week. Like I said, I mean, you've got a huge ratings dog in there and every single week. So you're going to keep more viewers, and NBC will retain more viewers on Saturdays through that.
Sam Bradshaw he's just sent me a direct message. What is the major impact factor that impacts viewership of college football? Response to the Big 12, Pac-12 ratings article. If you want to, you go to @Baylor_S11, @Baylor_S11, and I'm going to retweet it as well on my timeline, and so you can look at that when you have the chance to do so. And Sam works quite a bit, pretty heavily up until about 4 or 5, and we're pretty backloaded today with the show. But we'll see if maybe, because it can get complicated. It really, really can get complicated. And we appreciate those who have sent us these graphic presentations, Sam, Tony, among a couple of others as well. Here's another interesting note from John Alram, he's had a busy week. The NFL will schedule a Black Friday game in 2023, and Amazon will be the one who carries it.
Yeah, well, there you go. So the NFL also jumping back into college football's grill there.
Here's an opening. It's Black Friday. It's kind of special. We'll make a big deal out of it.
I mean, they are, but it's not like Baylor and Texas aren't playing on Black Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, college football's not doing anything. Yeah. They're just probably not promoting it as highly as they probably could have. So, yeah, that's another weekend potentially they've, I guess, surrendered in so many ways to the NFL potentially. I mean, that makes sense, though. I mean, the NFL is always doing stuff like that. They're always thinking outside of the box and trying to do things differently, and it's always been college football that's kind of preventing themselves from doing that because of one bias or one thing or another. But, yeah, I mean, Baylor, Texas will play Black Friday. I don't know what other games are Black Friday this year. But
LSU and Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, LSU A&M. So, I mean, it's not
game.
I like college football's not trying, but the NFL is the NFL after all.
Here's from Tim Brando on Twitter a couple of hours ago. The overriding plus to Big Ten TV rights is how much more the consumer gets, plus greater exposure on free network TV. 3 major networks airing college football with CBS and NBC investing college football. The business blueprint is a win-win for all involved and especially for you, the viewer. And that's from Tim Brando, who joins us quite a bit from his Twitter feed a couple of hours ago.
I mean, yeah and no. I mean, I think it's great that there's big-time networks like that are involved, but they're involved with a couple entities, not all of college football. I mean, let's see once the dust settles on who all is still, on those types of networks. But if it's just the Big Ten or it's just SEC and Big Ten, then how is that not going in the direction that we're sort of talking about?
Well, then ABC, ESPN will. But there's not going to be more games broadcast this or whenever these things take shape. They're just going to be in different locations.
Well, yeah, and look, I think it'd be great if all the leagues could diversify across all the networks, because some people, kind of have their watching habits, but it would be good to, I mean, again, everything is stronger together, which college football doesn't seem to realize, that your sustainability is stronger together. That's why leagues kind of operate the way that they do, and that they know that they're stronger together. And, the Lakers don't cry about the Timberwolves because they know that they're stronger together, and the Lakers need the Timberwolves like the Timberwolves need the Lakers. So I would love to see it. Look, if you're going to have 3 windows for games across all the networks, if it's noon on Fox for the Big Ten and 3:30 is a different one, and everybody does a primetime game going up against each other, shoot, let's go. But I mean, it doesn't work that way. If the CBS is going to have the 3:30 Big Ten game, why can't they have a noon Big 12 game? Or,
Lots and lots of questions. And as Craig continues to say, as we all say, and I'm sure you do as well, let's get the evidence, and then we can actually understand exactly what it might mean. We're going to break right here. Our first guest is not until 4:15 today. He covers Wake Forest, Connor O'Neill, on the Sam Hartman story as well. Bruce Feldman came out today with his freaks list, his college football top 100 freaks list. We'll get into that a little bit with you as well, and a couple of other notes. USC. This was a story written yesterday in the LA Times. A donor-run NIL collective is coming to USC football, and USC football is not real thrilled with it. We'll have that and take that and discuss that as well. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Craig alluded earlier to Jack Swarbrick, the AD at Notre Dame, and we had mentioned this, I think, a day or two ago, that he was going to have kind of a community-type conversation, town hall-type setup. And I don't even know, I think it was like even online or whatever. But here's Notre Dame, who right now has the match. The Big Ten has a match. The SEC has their box of matches as well. But he did speak about certain things. And Craig, go ahead and let's read a quote. We'll digest it and then read the next one as well.
All right. I'll try to bounce around here. The question was about conference affiliation. I mentioned all the movement that has gone on, and it says, pretty much everywhere in the country has been a bit dizzy for the average fan. Not only what happened so swiftly behind closed doors. Tell us a little bit about what you see in the landscape and what are the ramifications for Notre Dame. That's what we want to hear. The 2 big moves we've had in the past 2 years were in a sense foreseeable. A lot of us knew Texas was interested in considering what its options might be. A lot of us knew USC was a little frustrated with its situation. So those 2 dominoes you always felt were sort of potential movement. Now, did I see USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten? No, not necessarily, but the movement didn't surprise. But those are the big moves, right? Those are the tectonic ones. Yeah, and then they trigger other discussions and other possibilities. I think what we've seen now is the consolidation of power, if you will, in 2 conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. So there's a bit of a Big 2, next level 3, and then group of 5 in a way there wasn't prior to this, or won't be when the moves are completed. They don't happen yet, and so that's probably the biggest significance, I think, that the SEC and Big Ten have, at least for now, put themselves in a different position.
Yeah, that's very true. And then, again, he's also kind of saying that, those are the tectonic moves, meaning that there's probably not too many tectonic moves left to make, which is kind of obvious.
Yeah, I mean, what could they do outside of the ACC splitting apart? And he's not going to, throw that out there in some random town hall in South Bend. I mean, with all due respect to his crowd, he's not going to, I think, break, ACC breaking apart news to them.
Well, and again, that would be like not a home for his Olympic sports and everything else because they'd have to move. That
was the other thing that he got to. Then it went on to talk about. Notre Dame football has remained independent for roughly 135 years. What would trigger a move for Notre Dame to give up football independence? What is the timeline? Give us a sense of the timeline for those triggers or those decisions. And Swarbrick said, we've talked about them a fair amount. One is, do we have a committed broadcast partner who will not only carry all our games, all of our home games nationally, but will compensate us for our media rights in a way that allows us to be competitive? So it starts with the question of media partner. Secondly is our access to the college football playoff. Do we as an independent retain adequate access? I think we proved conclusively in the past 8 years that we've had it. Both those things will play out over time. I can't predict how much time. And then at another point, he did mention that part of that would be, when he said at point in time, the follow-up was, well, do you think that's 1 or 2 years? He said, I think the CFP will be resolved as to what's next within that time frame, 1 to 2 years. It's possible the media situation could be. But the flip side of that is our contract runs through the 25 season, so hard to say. But those are the first two things. All right, so the college football playoff expansion. Does Notre Dame have a spot or not? The way that they've had it. If they do, then why the hell would they join a conference outside? And everybody says money. Like, I know that people who are screaming about money in Notre Dame are broke folks like me. We're talking about Notre freaking Dame like here. I mean, we're not talking about somebody who's like starving for money. And I understand that there is a difference between $100 million and $1 billion. But, there is a cutoff to where you're Notre Dame and the luxury of being an independent. You have so much that you don't really have to sacrifice your identity, basically, as an independent for another, chunk of change. But everybody seems to think, they just can't turn down the money. They can't turn down the money. It's too much money. And if that's the only reason you have for them doing this, then I'm just not buying that all the way. I'm really not.
Money comes with strings, right?
Yeah.
Right now, they live a no-strings existence. And they get all the money. They don't have to share anything. NBC cuts them a check, and they keep it. It's not like they cut Notre Dame a check, and then Notre Dame has to cut it 10 ways. Notre Dame keeps it. So that's a luxury that right now they would have to be bought off of. And if they get bought off of it, are they going to like that?
And I also wonder, too, if they are so coveted and so strong and so powerful that they are the only school that you could say for sure the Big Ten would just open its doors for right now. Why? Because they would be the school to increase value, right? If they're so strong that they can increase the value overall for 16 total schools, then what could they do by themselves in this new deal? That's what doesn't make sense to me either. That they're so strong, they would be the only logical candidate to come in and increase the value of a 17-team conference, right? With the LA schools coming in, and then Notre Dame. They're strong enough to do that, but they can't stand on their own 2 legs in the future as an independent? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't think they're ever going to not be an independent.
But you know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
If they're worth that much money to the entire conference, they can't get a deal on their own that's going to be satisfactory to them alone and retain their independence. So
how much value is there in having their independence?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what I'm saying. What is that number? Is it 30 million, 50 million, 70 million?
Way more than 30 or 50.
I think it's priceless.
If, our company got bought by somebody and they were going to pay us an exorbitant amount of money, that'd be great. But if it came with a whole lot of strings, sometimes your life gets a little bit worse. And look, Notre Dame also gets money from the ACC for all the other sports too. So they have 2 streams of revenue, and that's a mutually beneficial relationship in the ACC. And they don't have to share anything football wise. And then everything else is split up as normal, which is what they need. So,
yeah, but I keep seeing, and it's Twitter, so it's whatever. But, they can't make $100 million on their own in this next deal. It's but yet they're capable of increasing the revenue for 16 other schools? What?
Okay, what if they can't make $100 million on their own, but they can make 50? And nobody bothers them. Nobody can, and they're powerful.
Well, that's what it goes back to is the college football playoff. That's going to be a huge part of it. Like, can they be Notre Dame and get their little spot at number 4 or number 5 through 8 the same way they're getting it now? And I think that that's the key. So if you're the Big Ten in theory, and if you really want Notre Dame, like, you're pushing for a playoff where they don't get the Notre Dame access.
Yeah, behind the scenes, you're probably having those discussions. How can we set this up where Notre Dame only gets in if they're a part of a conference or they're squeezed out? And even then, that doesn't mean that works.
And also, at this point, how trustworthy is Kevin Warren?
He seems to be someone who went from he's over his head to, like, a month or so ago, everyone thought he was walking on water.
Oh, now he's the kingpin. But I'm saying, like, given the moves, why would you trust him?
And we don't even know if he is the kingpin because we have to see how this all shakes out.
That's how it's being portrayed.
It's gone from him being irrelevant or incompetent or over his head to all of a sudden stories a little bit about him, and the next thing you know, you're putting him up here with who's the former SEC conference commissioner? Delaney and Slive and Sankey, and let's see how this plays. And good for him if that's the case, but I'll go back to a good friend of mine that's kind of involved in a lot of things, sponsorships, a lot of things as ACC. He goes, be careful about how you prop him up, because that doesn't mean that's true. If he can get this large, massive deal for the Big Ten, and it appears it's headed that way, then good for him.
Yeah, good for him. And I'm sure if you're Notre Dame, to some extent you could, because he couldn't really afford to lie to you and stab you in the back. But he's already done it to a couple of conferences, and he's done it. So I would just be a little leery of trusting every word that's said. And, yeah, that's where it also comes into play on the whole 100 million thing and everything else that's been said that no one's really fact-checked, quite frankly, that if we start to look into, like, maybe that was close to accurate, but not quite, but it played better in the media not being quite as accurate. So, yeah, I got a little eyebrow raised over just kind of everything at the moment. But, yeah, obviously the college football playoff situation will be significant. He thinks that will be resolved in the next 1 to 2 years. Same thing with their media deal. Should be resolved in the next 1 to 2 years, runs through 2025. Those are the two biggest things. And then he said the third is a good home for our Olympic sports where they can compete for national championships, but also have schedules that sort of make sense for them. The ACC has been a great partner for us in that regard. I'd like to make progress on the schedule front. It's so hard for our kids to travel the way they do. I think we've talked about it before, but when you're going to Tallahassee and you start with a bus trip to Midway, and then you connect once along the way before you get there, and then you're on a bus trying to get to campus, it's probably 18, 16 hours that you've been involved in traveling. That's tough to be a pre-med major or finance major and do that, so we're always looking for ways to make the scheduling easier, but it's media, it's college football, and it is our Olympic sports.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting how they've set up these schedules. They're doing that now. West Virginia has to go west almost all the time. That's why it's good for them with Cincinnati and West Virginia. I mean, with UCF and whoever else we know down the road that is a part of it. And then again, you also hear the argument, no one cares about that. It's all about how much money you can make. No, I think there are still some that are a part of wanting to make sure that the mission statement, even though it's, college football used to be a nonprofit, right, Paul? It was. Now it's not. There are guys, teams, programs, schools making lots and lots of money. I still think there is still the core value of what is a student athlete, even though I usually lose that argument.
There absolutely is. Have they been used and abused over time? Yeah, absolutely. Does that need to change? Is it overdue? Yeah, absolutely. But, man, I am so glad I have not completely thrown out all core values to think that it's just everything's all about money all the time. I understand that's the way it's perceived. I understand some people really believe that, but that's not entirely true. Does it make your life better? Yeah, it can. But, man, there is more to life than the dollar bill. I mean, there really is, and I just feel for people that don't see through that because there's clearly a lot that just think every decision's money-based. And, look, a lot of times it is. There's no doubt. A lot of college sports, absolutely it is. But I do think that a Jack Swarbrick could take $20 million less to better ensure the life for his athletes, and everybody still eats just fine. He doesn't have to take every dollar that he finds on the sidewalk. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, and that's kind of, in a way, what he alluded to from Steve the Frog fan. Notre Dame has revenues beyond football media rights. They have 1.2 billion followers worldwide through their Catholic affiliation. They simply have more following and association due to their religious affiliation than any other school. You hear that a lot when it comes to Brigham Young and what they have as far as their value around the country or the world. one of the questions from Nathan is, what's more important, the national championship or revenue? You can have both. But at the same time, what I've seen now is when teams don't win, they bring up their endowment as their value.
Yeah, or how long they've been open, or
But
something.
they're winning, they don't have to go to endowment. And that's kind of, to me, that's kind of crept into this conversation a little bit of late, especially in the last year.
By the way, my dad said that Notre Dame was always so good when he was growing up because they had a recruiter in every town.
Yeah,
which is,
I mean, they're built different. I mean, they are and look, none of this is making me think that there's not a chance of them joining a conference. But I'm reading you his answers here, and they asked him about the playoff, and he said that he's more vested. He said, I couldn't have been more vested in the model of 12 that we came forward with. I spent a lot of time building that with Sankey, Bowlesby, and Thompson. We spent 18 months. The calendar's tough to accommodate, but he thinks it's the right number for a host of reasons. And if you get bigger than 12, it gets even more complicated. Less than 12, you're not giving enough student athletes the opportunity. And he said the most compelling statistic for me when we started our research on this was that on average, if you're a college athlete, you have 23% chance of participating in the postseason. If you're a football player, you have a less than 4% chance. We need to give student athletes or football players more of an opportunity to be in the postseason.
Amen, Jack Swarbrick. Amen. And look, the big conferences get knocked on that.
No, we don't want to see blowouts.
Yeah.
We don't want to see blowouts. We don't need more college football playoff.
They get knocked on that, but this is really about the Big Ten throwing a wrench in the machine until they could get their way.
Yeah, basically.
Because the SEC was ready to go. He was part of it. Ready to go.
Big 12 was ready to go.
Everybody was ready to go. And then the Big Ten, started saying, hey, ACC and Pac-12, this will be bad for you guys. You stick with us. And then they got their way, and now you hear Kevin Warren. He's like,
yeah, now he's
great idea.
Slit the throat of the Pac-12, basically.
Awesome. Yeah. John Baptist
slit the throat of the Pac-12, and now trying to take Notre Dame from the ACC. Yeah. Who's trusting him at this point?
John Baptist. And you know what? If you do that enough, if you are, in some cases, you can be business ruthless and still be a good person and incredibly successful. But you have to start watching your back a little bit.
Well,
Notre Dame doesn't want to join a conference. This is from John Baptist, because they don't want to have to compete for a conference championship. Notre Dame they know they wouldn't win the Big Ten championship every year. Well, and that's why freedom is great as long as you can have it as far as independence is what I mean.
Well, and here's
college football.
And here's the thing they can say, we had to join a conference during COVID and we damn near won that thing. Do you really want us to? So,
God. All right.
It's very interesting, though. I mean, I'm glad he had that little town hall because, it doesn't shed a whole lot of light, but it does give you an indication of sort of where he sits on certain things. And I've seen, definitely, based on their bios, pro Big Ten as it gets, and they're looking at one line that he said about there can only be 2 super conferences the way it's currently set up, and taking that to mean that the super conferences are here and Notre Dame's joining the Big Ten soon. So if you want to read it that way, you can clearly some people have. If you want to read it as though they're going to stay independent, which some people have, then that's up to you as well. But it is interesting. If nothing else, it is interesting.
They have power, and yet they haven't won a national title since 1988. They have power, and they are 2-4 in their last 6 bowl games. They have power, and yet they have also been blown out in some of those semifinal games, but they're not the only one. But they do, no matter all of that, you still look at them, and they have power. From Simon 2077, I don't believe Notre Dame could win the Big 12 championship every year.
Every year? No.
No.
But they don't have to, and they have at times had this opportunity, not a free pass. But, they've got the shiny helmets and they've got the tradition. But the tradition lately, even though Marcus Freeman's trying to take what Brian Kelly did and take it to another level, there's a lot of schools right now that don't get to go to the college football playoff who have great tradition, who are trying to get themselves back to just winning and getting to bowl games.
Yeah, well, how would we be talking about Notre Dame, and this is a total what if, but how would we be talking about them if they didn't have the playoff luxury of being an independent the last few years? Because they've made multiple appearances now, but if they were in the ACC or the Big Ten, that's probably not happening. I mean, at least there's going to be some years where, no, it's going to be Florida State with Jameis Winston instead, or it's going to be Ohio State, or it's going to be Michigan like last year. So there is something to be said for that, and that's why, again, the playoff expansion part of this and Notre Dame's fit in that, whether it remains as is or it's like, no, you're forced to be like everybody else. that's going to be one of the three things that he mentioned. And I think that's certainly probably the top two things that, more so even than the student-athlete comfort. I think that's probably even more important than that.
It appears right now all decisions in college sports, college football, and as John Joe put in the chat room, big universities have been decisions made about what is money in capital letters, money. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. We read some chats when we can, text when we can. We can't get to all of them, but we do appreciate you. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. When we come back, we'll jump into this USC NIL or donor-run NIL that USC is not so happy about or thrilled with. Next on Sikkim 365 Radio. All right, Waco Custom Marketplace. I cannot wait till I don't know if it'll be Saturday evening or Sunday, when I put a bone-in ribeye, big, thick Alpha Dog bone-in ribeye on the grill and have that for dinner sometime Saturday evening or on Sunday. And I get my steak from Waco Custom Marketplace. Seafood, Norwegian salmon, Waco Custom Marketplace. They have huge, big, thick chicken breast. Waco Custom Marketplace. And they have all of that if you want to cut it into certain pieces, your chicken, and even sausage. Waco Custom Marketplace, a full throttle butcher shop. They have a bakery with fresh baked bread and also kolaches every single day. Today and all the way through Saturday when they close the doors for the week, fresh mahi-mahi at $13.50 a pound. They also have chicken wings at $3.85 a pound. Boneless pork chops, $1.85 a pound. Tri-tip and top sirloin steak, both at $5.75 a pound, and right now 30% off on all Boar's Head lunch meat. They have the grocery store type items you need in the rows in between. Fresh seafood, sausage, pork, poultry, beef. They have it. They will cut whatever steaks you want. The other day I told you about the steak I had from Blake Browder. It was this thick, a filet, and he cooked it like amazingly delicious. And they bought those steaks from, again, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Care Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know the average American pays over $500 a month for their car payment? What would you do if you didn't have to make that payment for 90 days? Where else could you use $1,500? Keep your car payments at Genco. Buy new or refinance your current vehicle and have no payments for 90 days. Take advantage of our low rates and no payments for 90 days. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies insured by NCUA.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Baylor
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I did not have time to get this to Garrett on a graphic, but Bruce Feldman, I love this list each year, the college football freak list. I noticed like 2 of the first 7 are Michigan. Mozzie Smith, defensive lineman, Michigan, number 1. Will McDonald, these are some of the names of schools we either touch on, cover the Big 12 in the state of Texas, and or incoming. Will McDonald, the 4th, Iowa State defensive end. Dylan Horton, defensive end, TCU at 16. McDonald, by this 5. Gabe Hall, defensive lineman at Baylor. I mean, you talk about a guy that looks good getting off the bus, and also he's battled some things over the years, and that defensive line, and includes Gabe Hall's not even a starter, and he is, and he's going to be on the outside. They have so many numbers right there on that defensive front. Quentin Johnston, we saw him in high school at Temple at 23. I like this pick. This is Roshan Johnson. Imagine if he was the guy, with, of course, splitting carries with Bijan, and not even that, Bijan gets more of them if he's healthy, running back Texas at 26. Devin Achane, running back A&M at 35. How about Stephen F. Austin, my alma mater, with B.J. Thompson, 36 at defensive end.
Who played at Baylor, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he did. Darrell Parrish, defensive line fullback from Houston at 49. Now, I'm not going to go down all. Let's go Cincinnati, Tyler Scott at 54, wide receiver, kick returner. Cincinnati, Trey Tucker, wide receiver, 67. Cincinnati, Josh Wiley, I think is how you say his name, tight end at 78.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason they're winning all of a sudden.
Our good friend, we interviewed him at Big 12 Media Days.
Got some athletes there.
Yep, Travius Hodges Tomlinson, cornerback at number 57 out of TCU, played at Midway High School.
Yeah, one thing I will tell you, and I was thinking about that when I read the list this morning and saw Travius. There were times, and we even knew it doing his high school games, where we would say, like, hey, great play on this by so-and-so, and it wasn't Travius. And then Craig would be like, hey, guys, you know that Travius is the reason that happened, right? And then you go back and look at like, oh yeah, totally, that's why it happened. And it wasn't that he would make the play, but his presence in the region or the fact that he was getting close was what allowed the play. He was so fast and so quick. He took away absolutely half the field.
Yeah, as a high school corner.
Yeah.
Let's see. West Virginia has 68 and 71. Bryce Ford Wheaton, wide receiver, 71. Jordan Jefferson, defensive lineman. Texas Tech with Jalen Hutchings, defensive lineman at 86. Like him a lot.
I haven't probably looked at this list in a couple of years. Has it always been this long?
I thought before it was like 10 or 15,
I
but
did
now
too,
it's 100.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's become I think it's popular,
yeah.
And now it's gotten to the point now, I don't even know how you could fill out a list of 100, but there are certain schools that had more than others, but I thought it was interesting. Michigan had 2 of the top 7, including Mozzie Smith, defensive tackle.
I remember when Sean Okerman was on that list.
He was in the top 5,
and I want to say there was like 20 guys on there at that point in time. So, yeah, it was definitely a little bit different. But, I mean, shoot, when you got that many programs across the country, of course there's going to be a lot of freaks out there. And it's not just going to be, 15 or so guys. But yeah, that was a good list for a lot of different schools around this area and in the Big 12, I guess.
Phil Venzer from Vegas. BYU fans, I don't know if you guys know this, livid on their ticket allotment for their game against Notre Dame in Vegas. And it's a Brigham Young home game. How about those two fan bases? Huh?
Oh, that's going to be wild. That is absolutely going to be wild. I like I said before, that's October.
I don't know what the breakdown is.
I think that's October 8th. That's the same day as A&M and Alabama. That's one heck of a day for college football. I think that game's going to swing. One of those teams is going to be, I said in the top 5, one of those teams that might make or break their season right there.
BYU ticket allotment. This was on July 22nd against Notre Dame.
Do you think that's going to be a competitive game, A&M and Alabama?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I like, they did it last year, so it doesn't make me think they can do it again. But if A&M truly is better, and if they do have, they won last year with Zach Calzada, like giving absolutely every bit of juice he had into that game. If they have good quarterback play, I think so. But again, that's what we keep saying. We don't know. We don't know. And it feels to me a little bit, because if you look at the talent that A&M had on last year's team, had you had the quarterback play that they wanted, then that might be a different discussion about Jimbo's spot right now. But Zach Calzada being the quarterback, and he is average. He's got a great arm, but he's an average quarterback. I think but now a lot of those guys are gone. They have this number one recruiting class in, but nobody relies on freshmen. I mean, there might be a couple who make an impact, Nolan and Stewart, but
and the guy you keep referring to is not Auburn. So
yeah, exactly. So Calzada's average.
A&M.
So who's the guy? Who's it going to be? And he's going to be really that effective. We'll see. I mean, I think they've got some talent back there, and I trust that Jimbo can coach up anybody.
By no means do I think that this is like do I ask that question because I think A&M is going to stink or anything like that. I wonder how they're just getting a lot of hype. They're getting a lot of hype. I mean, top 10 preseason ranking with no quarterback named. They're that good? Like, I don't know, man. I think they're going to be good, but tell me who the quarterback is before I put them top freaking 10. I don't care how they've recruited.
They were what last year, 8-4?
That's what they are every year.
Well, no, and that's been kind of their MO with struggles at quarterback and then the injury early, and they went 8-4, but they had the win against Alabama. That's almost like a win and a half or two. And it's been quiet about their quarterback competition. Very quiet.
Yeah, it's not top of mind, I don't think, for like most of college football. And a lot of people may not even realize they're having a quarterback competition because they're just throwing them in the top 10 or they know there is one and they just don't really care. But yeah, I mean, I think that first game of the year for them against Sam Houston, I'm not saying at all that'll be an upset, but Sam Houston, you talk about like a way to start off and just like get a little feisty right out of the gates. Sam Houston's going to be fun just as far as a feisty week one, like, all right, let's get dirty and let's play some football. And then you got Miami a couple weeks. You got App State. You got Sam Houston, App State, Miami for your non-con. I mean, that's
and some of those road games. Top 10 teams in the coaches poll that we discussed earlier in the week. How many of these guys have quarterback issues? Alabama.
Nope.
No. Ohio State.
No. Nope.
Georgia.
Nope.
No.
Clemson.
Yep.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
well, their options are a good thing. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's going to be one of a couple of guys. I mean, you do two at A&M. It's going to be one of certain guys. But, yeah, Clemson, yes and no, I guess, yeah.
Notre Dame.
Who is Notre Dame's starting quarterback right now?
I mean, their quarterback that last year's gone. So
Michigan.
No.
Why am I blanking on that?
A&M, yes. Utah.
No.
Cam Rising. Oklahoma.
Okay, no. Notre Dame's in a battle right now. Yeah. Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine. I was like, what in the world? Yeah.
Okay, so Alabama, no. Ohio State, no. Georgia, they feel good because
they got the future proprietor of Stetson Bennett Life Insurance.
This might be a controversial segment here. Georgia's going to be really stinking good, man, but I was not like thrilled with their offense last year by any means. I'm not just on the like they're just going to not skip a beat. Offense is going to be great. I think of course they've got great talent, but I mean that defense was so freaking special. I think it covered up like how kind of not incredible the offense was.
So let's say the defense is not quite incredible, but the offense is slightly better.
They'll be a really stinking good team because that defense was so good that even if you knock it down a notch.
Do they have a quarterback issue?
No.
No.
I'm not talking offense. I'm talking about quarterback play. And again, the young man will never have to buy his own beer.
No.
All right. So, Notre Dame 5, the quarterback competition. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Michigan 6. They have, oh, God, he's back.
They've got both their guys back.
They rotated last year quite a bit. A&M 7, we don't know. Utah, Cam Rising. Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel, to be determined, although he seems to have, obviously pretty good player. And
that's
then
not to be determined. He's the starting quarterback,
But is that an issue? Do we know?
No.
And Baylor was shaping with 2.5 starts. We like what we saw. Most people do, but that's still kind of a question mark.
Well, that's fair.
I don't think anyone's worried about it, but that
No, it's enough of a question mark. So, I mean, if your point being that A&M is what half of the top 10 have quarterback competitions going on right now.
At least
so let's see.
It's up in the air. Notre Dame, Michigan. No, Notre Dame, possibly Clemson.
I mean, again.
I still think Clemson is. I think they're fine with second year experience. Offensive line has to be better. So let's say again, Notre Dame competition, A&M competition, and that's it.
I mean, Michigan's got a quarterback competition. Michigan's got two guys.
But it's a good problem because of how they handled it last year.
Well, I guess that maybe is the way it's being viewed with A&M, even though they're, I guess. I mean, to your point, they're not the only one in the top 10 that has a quarterback issue. And so to my point, I guess people just assume that regardless of who that is, they're so stacked elsewhere that it doesn't really matter. They're top 7 in the country. Which I'm not necessarily on board with. That's just where I started.
Michigan's
with this.
Quarterback issues, if you want to say, because they didn't have a starter, won the Big Ten last year with the way they rotated with Harbaugh's decision to do that, and they both played very well when they were in the position that they were put in. All right, it's 4:10. When we come back, he covers covers Wake Forest. Connor O'Neill on the Sam Hartman story. We had a couple of the quotes up earlier. What does that mean for Wake Forest? And the Demon Deacon, Sikkim, 365 Radio, 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It is part of father time. It doesn't affect everybody, but 33% of you it does. And maybe it has. Or maybe you're not so sure. Go to PettyClinicalOT.com, Dr. Kent Petty, top left-hand corner, email and phone number. Tell them I sent you. Contact them, the staff, the office, and Dr. Petty, and say, hey, I would like to possibly have, I need to know. My testosterone level, could it be creating this issue? Sleep, body fat, lack of sleep, body fat, energy down, sex drive problems. And then they will set you up to get your blood work. He'll look at the results, and if your testosterone level is fine, you're fine. But if your testosterone level is too low, he will put you in a program and give you that option to increase your testosterone and help get back some of that you've lost because of father time. And low testosterone at PettyClinicalOT.com.
During the Make This the Summer event, Allen Samuels is celebrating with an incredible lineup of new 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee, Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power, style, and a smooth ride you'd expect from a Jeep. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Jet motion they go with here with Baldwin. And Baldwin breaks free. And the Bears, Sikkim, Monterey Baldwin.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
We were going to get into
here's
that.
David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We were going to get into that NIL collective. USC football is not real thrilled about it. At least that's basically as of now. We'll do that and push that back just a little bit longer. Travis Roeder, Sikkim 365 football analyst at 4:45. And then also we will hear from Jason Shear. Wildcat Authority covers the Pac-12 in Arizona in the 5 o'clock hour. Connor O'Neill joins us. And again, the story, Connor, we had the story earlier in the day in our show with Sam Hartman. Was this something that just all of a sudden today became news?
Yes, absolutely. I practice at Wake usually starts around 7:45 in the morning, and so I was out there at about 7:40 and just kind of taking my normal walk around the field before they get going. And athletic communications staffer came up to me and said, like, hey, you might want to get upstairs to the observation deck and get your computer out for a 8 o'clock release. So that's when it hit, and it's kind of been a nonstop wheel since then.
Sam Hartman is maybe, Connor, the best quarterback in the history of Wake Forest. So it's not like you can just replace him outside of, obviously the personal ramifications for him as he works to get back from this issue. What does this mean for the Demon Deacons as they're trying to win the ACC?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? I was just on with somebody yesterday and saying, like, it's impossible to ask him to repeat what he did last year. Last year, he became the third ACC quarterback to ever be responsible for 50 touchdowns in a season. The other two, when they did it, Lamar Jackson won the Heisman and Deshaun Watson won the national championship. So asking that of Sam would have been a little much this year, but based on the firepower of that offense coming back, the experience of their offensive line, it would not have been out of the realm of possibility to see Sam put up similar numbers. So it's still, it's one position. It's the most important position in sports, really. But there's still the firepower there for, it looks like it's going to be Mitch Griffith, a third-year quarterback out of Virginia, who takes the reins, and he's gonna have all the opportunity in the world. He's gonna have all the supporting cast in the world to still be successful and still kind of keep the train rolling. That, you know, Wake has played really good offensive football for most of the last 5 years.
Imagine him, all of a sudden just bam, hey, you're the starter out of nowhere. But I bet everybody's head spinning there right now, Connor, and that includes Dave Clawson's. I believe you guys got to talk to him, correct? And what was that kind of like to gauge his reaction to the news?
We did. You know, it all played out yesterday. Like, Sam had the surgery yesterday, so it's not like he was rushed overnight and Dave was just given all the details before he talked to us. He kind of had some time to sleep on it and digest how he was going to talk to us about it. And, you know, it's a program that they don't really differ from many other programs across the country. They're just going to bludgeon you with the next man up cliche. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Like, it clearly is a cliche because it works more often than not. So that was kind of the tone. It was like, this is really unfortunate. It basically sounds like it was not preventable. It sounds like this was just kind of a freak thing that was not football related, that could happen to, Dave even said this, it could happen to anybody. That it happened to the star quarterback was just the cards that they were dealt. So, you know, Dave is not going to be one to cry wolf and say woe is us and just kind of punt on the season and, you know, give us some kind of line about if we go 6-6 it'll be a miracle, that kind of thing. Like, they're still, their goals are in front of them. Dave was really encouraged by the practice that they did have, so they're going to keep trying to chug along.
So they do think this is definitely, or not definitely, but probably going to be an all year thing.
That's the thing that's really strange. Dave, several times in the 7+ minutes that we talked to him, said Sam will be back, some version of he'll be back. And maybe I'm getting hung up on the minutia here, but he never said this year. Like, it never. You know, the timeline, I think it's just so new. I genuinely think that nobody has a real grasp on the timeline of this thing. I think it probably depends on how Sam's body reacts to whatever treatment and whatever rehab he's going to go through over the next however many days, weeks, and if we get into months. It'll just depend on, you know, the body's science.
How important was it for him to be there where his teammates could see him and know that he's okay and that he's trying to move on?
It was huge. Sam has had that effect for a while on this team. Even going back to his freshman year in 2018, he broke a bone in his foot and was out, and they won a huge road game in the first game that he missed at NC State. And when team buses rolled back in that night, Sam was there to greet the team buses. This is like, you know, 2 or 3 in the morning, and Sam is out there on crutches. He's always been, he is a big time Wake fan. I think if Sam was not a college football player at Wake Forest, he would be a Wake Forest football fan. He loves the school and he loves his teammates. And that's why, I mean, this is his 3rd season as a captain. And I think in Dave Clawson's this is going to be his 9th season. I think Dave has had one other 3rd-year captain.
Go ahead.
Is the defense going to be better? Like, one of the things they'll probably need is that defense to be better. The offense, you know, even with a different quarterback, I would still think they're going to score a lot of points just based on the system and the talent that they have. But is the defense going to be better to make up for maybe the couple touchdowns they won't score a game because Sam will be gone?
That's kind of the unanswered question at this point. There have been some times in fall camp so far that you look out there and you really see a difference. You talk to some of the players and they'll tell you that it's a lot more of a aggressive defense. They'll tell you that they're thinking a lot less, which that might sound bad depending on how you take it, but I think there was some paralysis by analysis going on last year, and they felt like they were a half a step slow because they were trying to read too much. I think they've kind of eliminated that, but at the same time, it's a kind of a misconception about their defense last year. They had some games where they were not bad. I know that the season averages are terrible, but it's the averages that get dragged down by 4 or 5 times that they just completely broke. And there were other games, like Virginia had one of the best offenses in the ACC last year, and until mid-November, Wake had held them to, I think, more than 100 yards fewer than anybody else on Virginia's schedule had done. They had some good games. It was just the consistency, and it was when things went wrong, they went really, really wrong, like to the tune of giving up 56 points to Army.
Connor, what do you think of the schedule this year for Wake? I mean, VMI will be the opener, but you got, at Vandy, a little SEC action. But Liberty, Clemson, I know a lot. Some of these games, like Liberty and Clemson, are both home games. But just how do you think that the schedule stacks up this year?
I think everything perception-wise changed today. Between about 8 a.m. and 8:05. Mm-hmm. It's really a schedule that kind of sets up for you to break in a new starting quarterback, right? You're going to get an FCS team on a Thursday night at home. That should be no problem. Knock on wood. I mean, FCS teams get 1 or 2 big boys every year, but I don't think that happens here. At Vandy is a game that, with a healthy Sam Hartman, I was looking at and saying, with all of the summer realignment news, that's a game that ACC people are going to look at and say, we don't need Wake to just win this. We need Wake to win this by a lot against the SEC doormat. Now with the new quarterback, I don't know if you say that as emphatically. I think you still want him to win by a bunch, but if there are some growing pains with a new quarterback's first game, maybe you let some things slide. I'm really interested in what Liberty has. I mean, they were, I think, 8-4, 7-5 last year with an NFL quarterback. That's kind of a question mark that I would need to do a little more research to figure out. And then, I mean, you jump right into it. That September 24th date against Clemson, that was the biggest game on the schedule before today. That's the biggest game on the schedule after today.
I'm not sure if you did this or mentioned this or not. But obviously, he had a medical procedure Tuesday night after seeking attention during the workout earlier in the day. Were you at that workout when something happened?
No, it was an off day.
Okay.
We're permitted to be at the practices, but that was they're in the weight room lifting and that kind of thing.
And it really sucks because Wake Forest is so exciting, all the momentum and everything else.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a huge blow. But I mean, there's You're looking at it from a much closer view than we are, but yeah, on the outside looking in, I can't imagine what it's actually like if you're there and you've gotten to know Sam Hartman a little bit. Just crushing news. You did briefly mention the realignment piece as far as that Vandy game, and we talk a lot about that because the Big 12's kind of caught up in what's going on. We just talk college football. How have the folks out in your neck of the woods, digested realignment and the ACC's place in it and so on and so forth?
Everybody's just kind of clinging to this ACC grant of rights that extends to 2036 that basically spells out if you want to leave the ACC before 2036, you're going to owe the ACC at least 9 figures. Mm-hmm. And the ACC is going to still own your media rights until the end of the contract. It is, I'm not a lawyer. I haven't dove into that thing, but everybody that I know that has seems to think that it's pretty ironclad, and that's going to keep a team like Clemson or Florida State or Miami from jumping to the SEC, unless those schools want to shell out, thousands upon thousands of dollars per hour for a legal team that's going to buy them out of it. So we'll see if that happens in the next decade or so. Yeah. But it's kind of just it was really, really exciting for like 4 or 5 days. There was all kinds of headlines about now the ACC needs Notre Dame more than ever before, and Notre Dame needs to join the ACC because of the ACC extended an olive branch to them in 2020 during the pandemic. And I think that resulted in Notre Dame making the college football playoff. If I'm not mistaken, I might be misremembering there, but yeah, it's just kind of died down. The season ramping up has kind of given everybody a little bit of a breather with that. And, it's kind of wait and see mode with the grant of rights they have.
It does seem like ACC immediately was on the radar like the Pac-12 was with USC, UCLA, or the Big 12 was, because you wonder about them as well. But it's kind of calmed down. There's always that, well, what about the grant of rights? And Notre Dame's even attached to a lot of that with all the non-football sports. But it does seem like any concerns about the ACC from afar have calmed down, and they're mainly just worried about playing football.
Yeah. We had a brief pocket of it at ACC Media Day. I think that was around July 20th and 21st. So about 3 weeks ago, Jim Phillips was talking about it, and he presented what I thought was a strong front. I don't know if it's the smartest way to go about things, but it's at least the noblest to talk about how college sports has to be about more than just one sport. The ACC sponsors a ton of sports, especially compared to the SEC. And the ACC has always prided itself on its academic reputation. Now, college sports are moving more toward a professional business model, so I don't know if that's going to be the correct stance to take, but it's at least a strong stance. It doesn't have to be the right one if it's strong, at least. So yeah, that was kind of the gist of things as I read them at ACC today.
Connor, thank you for your time. Deacons Illustrated covers Wake Forest. Connor O'Neill's been with us before, talked about Wake Forest and the nice run they had a year ago with the Sam Hartman news. And you don't know. I mean, I thought I saw there was one quote where maybe he'll be back by the end of the year. But again, we don't know what it is, and it could be something that's going to take a while. But good luck to him moving forward. That's got to be a way you're at practice, you're kind of chilling, and then, hey, you need to go get your laptop, a release is coming out. You don't know what it is. And then if all the things it is, it's the quarterback is out. All right, it's 4:31, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. The USC NIL story next.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. A hidden gem. Look, they're on DoorDash now. So if you can't make it out to the store, just pop on a DoorDash and you can make your order right there. Not only that, they have the best selection of craft beer in Waco. They have the best selection of locally sourced whiskeys in Waco. They are absolutely fantastic when it comes to that. Balcones, Devil's River, TX, Garrison Brothers, all those there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. And they always have great promotions going on. Look, when Balcones has a new release, they have it there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. When anybody has a new release, they pretty much have it at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, the drive-through window is absolutely speedy and fantastic, so you don't have to get out of your car. The customer service is great. As a matter of fact, the reason it's so great and the drive-through window is so fast is they know the store backwards and forwards, so you walk up and say, I'd like a bottle of Devil's River, and boom, it's like in your hand because they know exactly where it is in the store. They're not walking around going, I don't know where I put that. They know everything backwards and forwards there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street. Check them out on Instagram for their great promotions and order them on DoorDash.
Holy cow, has it been a hot summer. You could fry an egg in the bed of a pickup truck. Jay here from Pickup Outfitters here to give you a little heat relief and some protection for your poor truck bed. August is bed cover month at Pickup Outfitters, and we're making it easy for you to cover up that hot bed on your truck with discounts of up to $200 plus matching rebates of up to $200 and double your warranty on many of those covers. That's up to $400 in discounts and rebates plus double your warranty on bed bed covers at Pickup Outfitters. And you get our famous lifetime installation guarantee and free warranty assistance, which makes for a worry-free purchase. When's the last time you could say that about your bed, a truck bed? Get your poor bed some heat relief with a brand new bed cover, including name brands like Backflip, Undercover, X-Tang, Retrax, Roll-and Lock, and Truxedo. Up to $400 in discounts and rebates with double your warranty. It's only at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. I've seen people walk in there. First of all, you have so much to show, whether necklaces, bracelets, rings. You have the watches. You have numerous great watches as well. You really have pretty much everything, don't you, when it comes to jewelry?
That's correct. Kind of a one-stop shop and all. And the fact that we have the 2 jewelers on staff, the repairs we can do, the fixing of your jewelry, and the remaking of any jewelry has really set us apart from anybody else.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
David M. put Jameson whiskey with a picture of his drink right now. Not the picture of his actual drink, but an emoji.
Wish I was right there with you.
You kind of went into that raspy, sipping on a big piece of ice. Is that right?
Yeah, love that.
All right. Now, USC NIL. USC has a partnership with an outside media company launching Boulevard LLC. The hope was that its unique approach of facilitating name, image like this, or whatever else would help kind of keep away the rise of donor-run collectives. And, of course, USC has had their issues with the NCAA, no matter who the NCAA is now or will be. But the LA Times then had a story that was out, I believe it was yesterday, deep-pocketed USC donors, diehard fans proceeding with their own NIL operation called Student Body Right, a third-party collective that they say is essential for USC to properly compete with other top schools that feature collectives. USC, however, the effort to start a collective outside the university's reach is being viewed as, according to this story, as an existential threat.
Existential threat.
That could invite serious scrutiny if the NCAA opts to enforce its NIL policies. A couple of the guys, a Florida-based businessman among others, saying, nope, this is what we need to do.
We heard this from Todd Berry about how NILs would eventually overstep their reach, and maybe were, especially in recruiting, of telling coaches, like, hey, I got this guy who's interested. And they're like, yeah, but we're not recruiting that guy. We don't really want him. And, you know, I do think that's a big swing, that if the NCAA decides to start enforcing, so they might reap the benefits and never worry about it. But I do think it should be best practices for collectives to, you know, help the university out on that end, as opposed to openly go against their wishes.
One of the parts of the group, Brian Kennedy, once was one of USC's top athletic donors. His name still graces their practice field. His relationship with USC soured nearly a decade ago, but he confirmed to the Times that he has been involved in discussions about student body right.
If you're expecting me to say a whole lot, I don't have a whole lot to say on it, because I told you before, I'm not going to start talking about yahoos that are like booster dudes and talking about them the way we talk about quarterbacks. Like, I'm not going to do it. NIL, I am all in favor of, but, you know, we start talking about rogue boosters and all that. I liked it better when it was behind the scenes. And I read their name in Sports Illustrated in the big expose, and then I never heard it again. You know what I mean? Not like the front of a thing that I'm going to hear about on a regular basis now with USC. I know there's like a whole avenue now for NIL, and like we've had our interactions with it, and Baylor's got their various things, and I know Sickham's done stuff and all of that, but I just have zero interest, man. I
get why, but I don't know if it's so much about bringing them up, the names up.
Yeah, but you're reading the quote from the guy, and I know. That was my initial reaction.
It's a story that, to me, that this is going to become even more and more of a problem, even when the school says we don't want you to be a part of it. To me, that's the story, not the road.
I know, and I was going to get there, but I was reacting to the guy's name. Like, that's my first thought, is I don't care to know who that is. All due respect, I don't care what he does. But be a behind-the-scenes booster and get USC back to greatness. For all I care, man, that's great. But yeah, I'm not gonna remember that name or the name of their NIL. But I do think that if you are in a position at USC where you feel like they're not doing enough and you want to make them as good as they can be, well, you're going to do what rogue boosters do. I mean, the rogue booster is not a brand new thing at all. It's just that it's now attached to NIL. And so this is going to happen. And I find it sort of surprising that with the Lincoln Riley era starting off the way that it is, that, I'd be curious to hear his thoughts on this, because I don't know. I don't really think that Lincoln Riley is probably like dissuading boosters from paying money to get him star players. But again, like I said a while back, like, yeah, you would think that the coach wants to have some say on who exactly you're pursuing, of course. But I don't like, how is this a bad thing, really? Outside of if they're going, like, as long as you're on the same page as far as who's getting what and everybody's on board with who is, then why does it matter?
Yeah, I would just like, my only comment on the story is, why would you kind of openly defy your university and put them in, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, is why would USC have an issue with it?
Yeah.
What is it about this thing that...
because they've had, it was like a decade ago when they had everything basically stripped out of their control.
But those rules are gone now.
Those rules don't exist.
And there's nobody to enforce
them.
So
my question is, I'm not asking you to necessarily answer it for me because you don't know, but what is it about this collective that USC's like, no, we don't want to be a part of that? Because every school is begging, or at least their fan bases are begging for NIL stuff. They're begging for it. Mac Rhodes has got like 3 different things going on. Baylor fans are like, we haven't done anything in NIL. And it's like, no, you haven't, compared to Texas Tech or SMU, who have basically given guys base salaries, and charity, which... Does charity come with a payment after the end of it, by the way? Because I see that in like every single thing with this.
That's the thing I wonder.
That's how you word it.
I know, but like I'm reading that and I'm like, I'm not clapping for your charity when I know you're getting $25K for it.
If I am Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin and Cory Booker and all these senators who try to write NIL bills, that's one of the first things I would do, is say, like, look, you cannot 501c3 an NIL deal.
But that's what they're all doing.
And that's what they're doing, because to me, That does it, like Craig. You're exactly right.
Charity
it's charity
for 100 football players making $25K apiece. That's charity.
But I'm making $25,000 to support this charity. Like, I don't know about like
the charity
how much money is going to student athletes compared to how much money is actually going to be raised for a charity.
Well, I mean, in Lubbock, it's got to be at least $1 million plus.
Yeah,
to match.
Mm-hmm.
SMU. Whatever their total was that was higher by like a few $10,000 or whatever, like, okay, whatever that extra that they're paying all their entire team, okay, that much in Dallas. Yeah, and I don't know, and I don't want to like just throw charities under the bus, but the whole like acting like this is charity. Oh, they're doing community service. They're getting paid $25,000.
Well,
like, what are you talking about?
What you're talking about is one of the problems I have with Tim Tebow, and maybe not him overall, but the idea of paying a guy like Tim Tebow $50,000 to $100,000 to come speak at your church when you could take $100,000, go out in your community and put some clothes on.
Let's
some
not
people.
even start talking about what could be done with college football money. Because my God.
So you have that stuff. So okay, you're going to pay these guys.
That doesn't mean Tim Tebow shouldn't demand and get what his fee, right?
Yeah, I have a problem with churches doing it.
No, I think you have a problem with Tim Tebow.
I have a problem with him in general because I think he's a big, gigantic phony. But
you always go there. Let's stick to the point about the charity.
But I don't have a problem with Tim Tebow getting a $50,000 speaking fee to go speak at a touchdown club. I have a problem with him doing it at church because, isn't that money better spent on people who actually need it?
Do you have a problem with Tim Tebow or the church?
The church. That's what I said.
We're talking
I said it twice.
NIL.
But I said NIL. So that's the same thing with a charity where, look, if I'm raising money for Habitat for Humanity, but I'm also getting a cut of it, then I'm not really helping the charity all that much,
It'll be interesting to see if there will be a story at some point in a year or two about how much actually the charities are benefiting and how much money they are getting based on what's raised that's going to pay the players and how much they get out of that.
And I'm not even saying that it shouldn't be done that way. I'm just saying I take issue with it when they call it charity and they act like it's all about community service. And it's like, yeah, but you're paying them to do the community service, whereas community service just was community service before.
I think they say that so they can get – that's the way you can word it.
I know why they do it, but it's bull.
Yeah.
Is why I'm calling it out. Because it's garbage. But I understand before we get the text message that in – I don't know, maybe in all of the cases, really, there's always that caveat when you read these things of, well, they can make up to, or they can get up to this by doing this or that or this or whatever. So, it's not like they're cutting the $25K check and it's just going straight to the deal. But it is just a little flimsy to call charity and all this stuff. And it's like, man, there's big money attached to this. Come on.
One of the other things you asked about Lincoln Riley, here's a quote from him on this. It was echoed the positive outlook of Big 12 Media Day about the Boulevard's launch, which is what we are talking about here. I took this job feeling like we'd have advantages in the NIL space over any team in the country. And I know that now. I know Boulevard is still a little bit in its infant stages, and I think this thing is going to turn out to be a huge part of USC athletics and USC football. It's something that has my complete support, our staff's complete support, and would encourage every single Trojan fan out there to get involved because it will make a difference. Now, that's the one that USC partnered with, or however you want to use those words.
The Boulevard or whatever.
Not the student body, right. We got a break. Coming up next, Travis Roeder, Baylor, watching some of their early practices, his thoughts about a couple of things that have caught his attention. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a bunch of great deals going on right now at Richard Carr. That's when they can get cars on the lot. That's been a hard problem for a lot of dealerships out there. Microchip issues and everything else that you've heard about over the last few months. That has been the case at Richard Carr like everywhere else, but they've tried to accommodate their customers as best as they possibly can. So if you are in the market for a new vehicle, well, they encourage you to get on their inbound vehicle list. You can call the dealership or email the dealership and sign up and get your name on that inbound dealership or that inbound vehicle list. And what that basically means, it'll be first come, first serve when your car of choice arrives. Now, if you're also looking to buy something a little bit quicker, to getting something sooner, like as soon as tomorrow perhaps, well, then don't wait any longer. There are cars and trucks on the lot right now using pre-owned vehicles. All have gone through a 172-point inspection. Over 95 quality pre-owned cars and trucks currently in stock. Plus, you can get top dollar on your trade With dozens of lending options, Richard Carr says yes to loans when others say no. So again, if you want to or need a car today, they've got 95 quality pre-owns plus that inbound vehicle list. If you want to get into something new, come by the dealership or log on to richardcar.com, see their in-stock inventory, and then put your name on that inbound vehicle list, and you basically cut in line. It's as simple as that. You get your Buick, GMC, or Cadillac before anybody else. But if you have your current car and you're hoping to drive it a little bit longer, well, Richard Carr has award-winning service and collision repair. They are the dealer you can count on for a great deal and superior service for the life of your car. In business for over 20 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Marco's Pizza, by the way, one of our great sponsors, will be delivering a couple of pizzas to us. Marco's Pizza, pizza lovers get it. Joined by Travis Roeder, Sikkim 365 football analyst. Joins us on 365 Sports. Travis, thanks for your time today. So, you've seen enough to get a glimpse of maybe a few things. what are a couple of, I guess, nuggets that have jumped out early for you watching some of the practices?
Well, it's tough to get any kind of like overarching, or I guess it's easier. It's actually easier to get overarching ideas. The tough aspect is when people are like, which wide receiver is standing out?
Right.
Like, I don't know how to give an answer to that because really, as we've talked about, I'm sure y'all talked about. I know Craig has talked about on the Bearcast that we're really just looking at kind of the opening drills of practice. So you basically kind of just get a sense of how guys look, how they move. The real sense I think you can get at these things is like guys who look like they're fired up and who look like they're really comfortable in the system. I have this moment when I think about when I went to a practice at Baylor back in 2014 or 2015, and it was just obvious that Corey Coleman was the best player on the field. I get a kind of similar sense when I look at how Ben Sims is handling himself during practice. He stepped up and taken a leadership role. And when you watch him go through drills, I don't know how to describe it, but you get a sense when guys like, you can just tell that it's almost on autopilot for him. They're working really hard, but it's just like he's so comfortable. He really looks like a fourth year player, that kind of deal. So Ben Sims really stood out to me. And then, some of the freaks that Baylor has on their offensive and defensive line, talking about guys like Abe Hall, Siaki Ika, even on the offensive line with like Elijah Ellis, some of these other guys, it's something else seeing them in person. Baylor has some real big dudes. Gabe Hall made that freaks list that Bruce Feldman does for the Athletic.
Yep.
And he's something else to see in person.
So are you getting kind of a sense of maybe some of the younger guys that could step in, though, or that seem confident early on?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
Are you getting kind of a sense of the younger, like you said, like again, overarching?
Oh, younger.
Some of the younger guys, some of the freshmen, maybe some of the redshirt freshman guys we haven't seen a lot of fitting in well so far.
Yeah, I mean, immediately my mind kind of goes to the cornerback position, right? I mean, they've moved Al Walcott to star, which is the position Jalen Petrie played last year, and I think they made that move because Al Walcott's such a playmaker. But what that leaves at corner is basically a bunch of very unproven young guys. And all of them are supremely talented. But really they only bring back one guy who has any significant experience. So some of those younger guys like Chateau Reed, AJ McCarty, and Lorando Johnson are all very, very talented, and they're younger. But they got to step up and feel comfortable in there, and the opportunities laid out in front of them. And so those guys really jump up to me as younger guys. I mean, just as some true freshmen that kind of pop when you see him. Jordan Neighbors was compared by me and pretty much anybody else who looked at him to Corey Coleman when he signed with Baylor last year, because they're built the exact same and they're basically the exact same kind of athlete. When you see him in person, the athleticism just kind of immediate. He's one of these guys like I said, it's just drills, right? But you can see in drills pure athleticism, and Neighbors is a guy that really jumps out as, that wide receiver room is wide open. He just got here in the fall, so it's always tougher for guys who don't early enroll, but I wouldn't be surprised if Neighbors is able to, not redshirt this year and push himself into some real playing time.
Is that your biggest question for this offense, is who the heck are the skill guys? I mean, I know you're high on Squirrel Williams, and the running backs maybe have a little bit more oomph to them as far as, Tays played a tiny bit, Squirrel's played a little bit. But is skill really the overarching question for this offense?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I think Ben Sims is going to lead Baylor in receptions this year. So I think in some sense the questions of wide receiver are somewhat overblown. Because I think you have to really consider Ben Sims and Drake Dabney as tight ends as being a big part of the passing game, and the running backs as well too. Jeff Grimes always has one or two running backs who are within the top 4 or 5 guys on the team in receptions, and so really it just kind of becomes, who are the 2 or 3 wide receivers who are going to step up this year, and really they need one guy to become like maybe not necessarily a full-on alpha. I don't think they need a first-team All-Big 12 type wide receiver this year to get where they want to go. But they definitely need somebody who can be reliable and that Blake Shapen can find a real good camaraderie with, because especially when you're competing in these biggest games of the year, right, there's going to be a 3rd and 6 where you're getting man coverage pretty much across the board, and maybe teams are keying in on Ben Sims, and you need a wide receiver to win. And you need guys who can just win on those kind of win route situations. So I feel good about it in the sense of I know that Baylor's unproven there outside at wide receiver, but what makes things better is that with those tight ends, it's not like they need 4 different wide receivers to really, really step up. I think they need 4 or 5 guys who are going to play, and they really only need 1 or 2 of them to be like very, very good players. So, obviously there's a possibility that none of them become very good, but I think you feel good about what the talent they got with guys like Hal Presley, Armani Winfield, Monterey Baldwin. You could even go on with 2 or 3 or 4 other guys that, out of that kind of big group in fall camp, that the competition is going to breed it out, because I think they know that the opportunity there for them is massive.
Chapin can wing it. We know that. And then if you end up throwing to Ben Sims or Dabney more than anything else, they're still going to wing it, right? They're still going to be able to take shots downfield.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the way this offense is built, this offense uses a lot of, they're called levels concepts, right? It's pretty basic. You've got one guy kind of clearing things out deep, one guy in the middle, and one guy in the shorter. And it's one thing to just kind of run a guy deep, but it's another to have him be a legit weapon. And that's why I love Monterey Baldwin so much this year for Baylor, because as we saw in the spring game, he took a big pass from Blake Chapin to the house. He was running basically just a simple post route that, if your wide receiver isn't very fast, it really just kind of occupies a safety. But for him, it wasn't just occupying a safety; it was blowing past him. And so, yeah, I think you're going to see them target those speedier guys like Baldwin out of the slot. And then if they get somebody like Hal Presley or Armani Winfield or Josh Cameron, who becomes kind of dominant on the outside, they're going to take those shots. We saw that all the time last year. When Baylor would get man coverage on the outside with Tyquan Thornton, they would take those shots deep. And the offense was really hampered late in the year when Gary stopped hitting those reliably. And so I think with Chapin, you feel a lot better about him taking those shots, because not to get too in the weeds, but I think what's going to set up for Baylor offensively this year is a pretty clear situation to where the tight ends, because they're going to be so good in the pass game and the run game, they're going to require a lot of safety attention and linebacker attention in the middle of the field. And so that really sets up a scenario to where if Baylor, if they really need to win on the outside with those wide receivers to take the next step and become a truly great offense.
Do you expect the running back to be more by committee than it was last year, or do you think Tay McWilliams will have the lion's share of the carries like Abram Smith did?
I think Squirrel's probably the 1A. It just depends on how they want to use him. I think Squirrel and Tay are kind of the clear top 2. I think the trouble with Squirrel, right, is like most of this offseason I was thinking, this is a guy that you get him 6, 7, 8 touches a game just to keep him healthy. But, when you look at him with the ball in his hands, with how many big games Baylor's going to be on in this year, you think about, just week 2 at BYU on the road. Are you going to only give him the ball 8 times because you want to protect him for the rest of the year? I don't think you can do that. I think they're going to give him the ball 15 times, 20 times, because he's just that dynamic. And I think when you look at Baylor, they're a team that's probably most games going to be rushing the ball, 40 to 45 times and throwing the ball about 35 times. And so that really kind of spells out there for to be taking about 15 carries, Tay to be taking about 15 or 20 carries. And then somebody like Josh Fleeks or another guy can come in and kind of spell for a drive or two. But I think in general, your best 2 guys are going to be receiving the lion's share of the carries.
Travis, you had mentioned, or I guess it was made mention the other day about Al Walcott moving to the star position. My question is, for those who are not big up on Baylor and, Al Walcott and all of that, why is that a big deal in your mind? And also just big picture-wise, where does Christian Morgan fit in?
Those are 2 great questions, Craig. So the reason why you should care, even if you're not a Baylor fan, is that because traditionally, basically everyone that Dave Aranda has used in this star position has just been awesome. And the other thing is that Al Walcott was a fine player, a good player even at corner, but I think his upside was just limited by the fact that he isn't very fast. Not slow necessarily, but for a corner especially, and he didn't really have any NFL future as a corner because he's like a 4.65 guy. And so I think it's a big deal because I'm kind of out there with this projection, but I feel really good about Al Walcott being at least a second team All Big 12 player from the star position because he's such a natural playmaker. he's just one of these dudes that when you play against him, it's like he'll probably have like a sack, a tackle for loss, and break up a couple passes and maybe pick one off. Just a real nuisance like Petrie was, just making plays all over the field, deep in coverage on one snap and then in the backfield the next. As for what they do with Christian Morgan, very interesting question. From what I can tell early this camp, he's working back there at safety, probably at the free safety spot from what I can tell. It looks like he's playing behind the redshirt freshman Devin Lemire. I think something that Aranda has been good about so far is that he seems to find some kind of carve out some roles for these like leadership style players who Christian knows the defense. He's a team leader. He's been around the team for a while. But it seems like there just might be a situation where some guys might beat him out, but they still might carve out a special role for him, maybe on third downs, or have him rotate in with the younger guys earlier in the year, and then whoever plays best can kind of solidify that spot by middle of the year.
Travis, thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to having you on quite a bit, not just now, but also once the season begins. Travis Roeder, one of the great additions to what we do, Sikkim365.com, with a lot of his write-ups inside the premium section, his analysis of certain players, positions. He's been on the Squirrel Williams thing from the day one, and thinks that he will be absolutely perfect for the wide zone in the way they run that ball at Baylor.
I think he'll be great. I think he's capable of being a great player. My only question with Squirrel is just, can he stay healthy? I mean, and that's it. I mean, if we just throw the health question out of there, yeah, let's rave about him and talk about how athletic and fast and everything he is. I'm with Travis on that, but I'm just not allowing myself to get too excited about him until I see him like in game 5 still out there getting 10 carries, and running the ball. And then if he's doing that and he's in the post game and he's fine, cool. You'll start to hear me beating those drums, but I need to see like more than a game before, I start getting like full on Squirrel Williams excited.
If in the premium section on our website on Sikkim365.com, there is an interview I did with him about a month ago, and he feels that a lot. I mean, he really does. And I even asked him. I said, "Are you aware of how much Baylor fans really want you to succeed and how excited they are for you?" And he was like, "Really?" I'm like, "No, dude. Seriously, like
everybody wants it."
Yeah,
I mean, everybody who follows wants Craig Williams to be a great player. But last year he had 4 carries for 15 yards, and then the year prior, in 2020, the thing that was interesting about that, if I can pull the 2020 season up, was he ended up with 26 carries for 197 yards, right? But he had 5 against KU. That was garbage time. Texas, he had 3 carries for 17 yards in a 27-16 loss, 3 carries. He had 10 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown and a 10-point loss to TCU. So that's when you start to go like, okay, Squirrel Williams. And then the next week they play at Iowa State. He's got 8 carries for 28 yards. Iowa State fans can attest to this. It feels like he's got about 15 for 290 yards the way he's running, and then he gets hurt.
Yep.
And then he gets hurt. Right in the middle of that game, Baylor ends up losing by a touchdown. I maintain that if Squirrel Williams stays healthy in that game, they win that game.
Yeah, that would have been a shocking upset, but they dictated the game. You're right.
But he had thrown something completely different out there, and he had the Iowa State defense on skates. And yet he goes down after only 8 carries and 28 yards. But again, it felt like he had 280. So that's why, and that was 2 years ago. And then, like I said, last year, 4 carries, 15 yards. So, yeah, he's got talent, no doubt about it, but I think everybody in the country's got one of those dudes that you're like, he could be special, but he's got to be healthy, and that to me is Squirrel Williams.
Baylor's got a handful of those type players who have spectacular ability, dynamic playmaking ability, but they have unfortunately, and sometimes it just happens, they've been beaten down by the injuries. Gavin Holmes is one of those at wide receiver, among Jalen Ellis at wide receiver, and Squirrel Williams at running back. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. So imagine you need an MRI, and it's on your lumbar spine. You need an MRI. And so you check, and the hospital, your doctor says you have to have that done at the hospital. And you have insurance, that's great news, but your insurance has $6,000 deductible because, well, that allows you to have lower monthly payments. The hospital of which this woman wanted to have her lumbar spine MRI was going to charge her over $2,000 because her deductible was so high, she would have to pay all of it. All of it. She called in Ideal MRI, as I've told you to do, and paid them $497, which is the max of what you will ever pay for an MRI at Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace in Waco. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff do an amazing job. I've been inside the MRI machine, I think 3 or 4 times now, and it's also amazing how simple the process is and how quickly you get your images back to you in a portal fashion so your doctors can have it back to them immediately. In fact, I've had a call or two on a couple of those occasions to let me know what they've seen. Ideal MRI, $2,000 or $497. Well, even then, again, that's a huge savings, and that's just one story. There are multiple stories like that at idealmri.com.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. And you're about to approach this time of the year where you have the holidays, special gifts. It's not that you don't have that every single day. What are some of the things you have coming up?
We kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves, probably 9 out of 10 every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Well, remember when they all arrived in Oxnard, and it was so nice, and start of training camp, and today they said goodbye. John Machota, theathletic.com. Cowboys training camp is over, at least the one in Oxnard, and now preseason games around the corner. John, thanks for your time. I'm not one of those that say, hey, what do the Cowboys look like? But they do have an issue, right, at kicker. Is that still something that this could be a long-term issue throughout the year?
Oh, absolutely. It could be one of those things where their kicker changes quite a few times this season, and I know that is enough to make Cowboys fans sick and just long for those days of Dan Bailey again. But, yeah, there's no question that there is going to be a battle probably throughout preseason and the rest of training camp. And I know that adding Brett Maher probably doesn't fire up the fan base as if maybe he would have been never with the Cowboys, and then now he joins them for the first time. Maybe they'd look at him differently, but because it didn't work out the first time, I get the sense that fans are a little hesitant about it. But yeah, I mean, they certainly don't have one of the better kicker situations right now in the NFL. And as we know, just how close all these games are nowadays, I mean, so many of them come down to a kick, whether it's an extra point or a made or missed field goal. So it's going to just be something we monitor throughout. But yeah, it could be a huge problem for this Cowboys team this season.
Well, and it's not like the field is replete with them. I mean, they're all over the place, right? They can't just go out. I mean, that's why they bring Brett Maher back. They don't have a lot of choices. It's things like this, John, that kind of feed the conspiracy theory that Jerry Jones is running out the clock on Mike McCarthy, because if you were really trying to put everything behind it, they wouldn't have made some of the moves they made in the offseason, and they certainly would have improved kicker, which was a problem for them last year.
Yeah, I think they were hoping that they could kind of replicate what they did with Dan Bailey in 11 and basically get Jonathan Garibay as an undrafted rookie free agent and have him battle for the job, and hopefully he wins it, and then he's your kicker for the next 5 or 6 years, and you didn't have to invest that draft pick. You didn't have to invest a third, fourth, or fifth like some teams have to get a good kicker. But it didn't work out that way. I thought it was kind of surprising they already moved on with him and didn't even give him a chance to play in a preseason game. That just seemed very un-Cowboys-like, at least recently, for them to move on that quickly. So obviously things didn't look good when I was watching these practices, but there must have been even more to it for them to move on as quickly as they did. So, yeah, it's not a great situation. I just don't think that there's a lot of great kicker options that are out there, unless you were going to, like I said, spend a higher pick to, let's say, get like LSU's Cade York or something like that. But they didn't seem too interested in doing that, and so here we are today.
Was there too much around Trayvon Diggs giving up the deep ball for a touchdown? Is that seemed like that flared up, or it maybe still is? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's one of those things where what we watch out there is it's kind of like an AAU basketball. It's kind of like a two-hand touch football league. I mean, they're not tackling to the ground. It's not like the same type of thing you're going to see on Sundays. So you got to just kind of take everything with a grain of salt. I mean, you're not getting the safety help over the top in those situations, and the quarterback is completely clean in the pocket and can just throw a nice, beautiful ball and put it right on the money to the wide receiver. And why I think that's interesting, particularly with this Cowboys team, is because all of that looks great, but none of that even happens if your offensive line isn't blocking well for you. And to me, I leave here after watching 14 days worth of practices, and I don't know the offensive line's any better than when I got here, just because they don't really it's kind of like a walkthrough type thing where, yeah, they're blocking each other, but it's not the same as it is in a game where you can hit the quarterback and you could cause these plays at the line of scrimmage and things like that. Like, for example, Micah Parsons got through 2 different times yesterday during team drills, and just great pass rush moves, just using his speed. But he has to run by Dak Prescott. He doesn't pull him down or anything, and Dak just moves by because he knows he's not going to hit him, and then he throws the ball. It's like, yeah, that's great if your offensive line's protecting, but if their offensive line isn't better than it was last year, we can't even get to the steps 2, 3, and 4 of some of these plays. So, and here's the other part: like, we're not even going to see that offensive line, the guys that are going to matter in these preseason games. So we really won't know for sure how good this offense can be until we probably get to, the first game of the season.
That is, but that's troubling to hear because that's, again, one of the things that they need to work on is the offensive line. I think, the Cowboys are in a good spot, John, because they're in the NFC East, and the Giants and the Commanders are still rebuilding, but the Eagles are looking a little bit scarier, and a lot of that hinges on Jalen Hurts. But I don't know if the expectations should be too high based on everything that's happened in the offseason.
Yeah, no, they probably shouldn't. The Cowboys. Here's my thing. I don't think the Eagles have done enough, and I don't think the Cowboys offseason has been bad enough for me to just say everyone should be picking the Eagles to win the division. I think it's pretty close between the Eagles and Cowboys. I think that they are considerably better chance of winning the division than the other two teams. But I still, everything I'm saying about the Cowboys, I can guarantee you the same thing is going on at Eagles camp. I mean, there's only, Jalen Hurts can look great in these practices, but how's his offensive line looking? Like, how do they block for him during the season? What's his rapport like in actual games with his wide receivers? With them adding A.J. Brown, there's a lot of stuff that, okay, and I get it. The collective bargaining agreement, it's in place so that these players don't get hurt this time of year, and that's great, and it keeps them healthy. And hey, the money that these guys are getting paid, that makes a ton of sense. The problem is, though, it's like you can't just go off of typical old-fashioned training camp takeaways, because these training camps are just not like what they used to be, and they're not like what games are going to be on Sunday. So we really honestly don't know, but it's fun for us to, go out there and watch this and talk about this stuff and all that, but you really still don't actually know until these actual games get started.
All right, you mentioned Micah Parsons and just kind of flying around and doing whatever. There's a guy who's a great young player, as a rookie, fantastic player. It does appear to me, when I read quotes or even see a couple of interviews with him, that he is absolutely never satisfied. Like, he has that as if he could end up being even better and better, not just with experience, because of what drives him. Is that what you get from him?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's just a really good match for Dan Quinn as well. Like, just those two guys working together, being on the same page, the chance for them to continue to grow in a second season together, I just think is so huge. Like, because let's say Dan Quinn gets a head coaching job like most of us thought was going to happen, let's say middle of last season, even after the season. I mean, heck, they're going up tomorrow and practicing with the Broncos, and that's the team that I thought Dan Quinn would be coaching. And so they were able to keep him, and then to keep building on what him and Micah did in year one. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, the Micah Parsons you see out there at these training camp practices looks every bit as good, if not better, than he did last year at this time. And if you're any other team in the league, that's scary if you have to play the Cowboys, because it's not only is he super athletic, but he is just so fast for an edge rusher. And that's what makes it so uncommon and makes it so that he could literally be an edge rusher on every single down, and he win quite a bit. So as long as he stays healthy, he should be in the NFL Defensive Player of the Year talk all season. And I think it'll come down to him, probably Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald, and then probably TJ Watt. But he's certainly one of those top 4 or 5 guys that everybody should be watching. I don't see any reason why he can't have an even better season in year 2.
Who surprised you more? And wide receiver is the position that people get super excited about, and then they have to come back down to earth. But given the Cowboys' need for some, especially early in the season before Michael Gallup gets back, Simi Fehoko or Noah Brown?
It's got to be Simi. And the only reason I say it is because we didn't see anything from him last year. I mean, he played in 5 games. I think he played a grand total of 7 offensive snaps. We just didn't see much to even build on, to even know what we were going to see going into this camp. Whereas Noah Brown, yeah, he hasn't made the big-time plays, but he's been in the offense. Most of the snaps he's gotten in previous seasons has been because he's been one of their better blocking wide receivers. And with this team being so run first in previous seasons, that's why he was out there. Now he's added on, and he's gotten better as a wide receiver, as a pass catcher. So I guess my expectations for him are just a little bit higher going into camp. I didn't expect to see anything that really caught my eye from Simi Fehoko. And it's not only that he caught my eye in a lot of plays, it was like as every camp practice went on, it seemed like he was making more and more plays. Like you could just see his confidence growing, and he's got really good speed and he's got really good size. And so, from just talking to people out there and you hear things, it sounds like as long as he can hold it down as a blocker at wide receiver, which obviously Noah Brown has an advantage there. But if he can do that, then there's going to be plenty of snaps for Simi Fehoko, because you can just see even the quarterbacks gaining trust in him and confidence. And hey, what quarterback doesn't like throwing, particularly in the red zone, to a big body receiver? So yeah, no, he would be the pick for me there.
From a West Virginia fan in our chat room, by the way, Owen, we all know that Dax is the guy. Cooper Rush, of course, helped them win a game last year. But did you see much at all? Is there any competition after Dak, or is that Cooper Rush's job? And what did you see, if anything at all, from Will Grier?
So Will Grier suffered a groin strain yesterday, and it doesn't sound like it's too significant, but it got him. It was enough to pull him out of practice. And then so now they go up to Denver. And the hope was that he was going to play a lot in that game. Well, now they got to find out on Friday, see how much he can do. And if he can go through the walkthrough and it seems like he's okay, then he'll play in that game. If not, then they might sit him. And then basically you're watching a full game of just Cooper Rush. And that'll probably won't be a lot of Cooper Rush. It'll be a lot of Ben DiNucci. So, yeah, the hope was that you're going to see a lot of Will Grier because he was having a really good camp up to this groin injury. It just very aggressive out there, showed signs of the guy that, most of us saw at West Virginia. And it showed you also how when he got here last year, it's in the middle of the season. Like it's hard to really kind of, get a foothold on the position. And so if I came out here and I was just like, I didn't know anything about any of these quarterbacks, I think it's really close in terms of who had a better camp between Will Grier and Cooper Rush. But that's not enough to beat out Cooper Rush because what Cooper Rush will have to fall back on is what I was saying earlier, the actual games. And him going up to Minnesota and winning that game, that's if it's even close, he's blowing him out of the water because you have that on tape. He's shown that he can go in there in a big time environment, a night game, and deliver late in the game. So it's going to be tough to beat him out for that. I don't see that happen. I think Cooper Rush their backup again this year.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Safe travels to Denver. John Machota, theathletic.com. Cowboys move on to Denver. Preseason, of course, starts this weekend. Couple of 3 super chats I want to get to. First of all, from Saban Warwick, just straight up super chat, $10.
Wow,
thank you so much. John Bolster.
Are you named after Nick Saban or Peter Warwick?
Or
Warwick Dunn?
S-A-B-I-N. Nick is S-A-B-A-N. So it could be Warwick Dunn or Peter Warwick, 2 FSU elites, and back when they used to win big games. Now, a lot of games. Also, Chris, NIL, will NIL create divas?
Like Antonio Brown. I mean, here's the thing. I believe that money makes you more of what you are.
Yep.
So if you were a diva, D-bag a-hole in the first place, it's just going to pour more gasoline on that fire. If you weren't, then it's probably not that big of a deal.
Yep.
So, yeah, if you have good character and somebody gives you money, more often than not, I'm not saying that nobody's incorruptible, but I think that if you're a good guy and all of a sudden that like Will Anderson's great guy, was active in the community before NIL, all these different things at Alabama, the NIL money is not going to make him some kind of jerk. If you were a jerk beforehand, it will absolutely make you a jerk because you cared about those things before.
I think the one caveat to that, and I agree with you, I think that, certainly money can change good people. In specific cases, but I think for the most part that, you are who you are. You're right on that. But that does not take into account the people around you.
Yeah.
You can be a good person, but you have the worst people in the world around you, whether that's Uncle Tom or Uncle Jerry, excuse me, your high school football assistant that's kind of a straggler, either the special coach that like all those outside factors that come into play that you hear about in like those worst nightmare kind of recruiting stories. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you got a situation like that,
on is what
the hangers on. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say.
Get into specifics. Just hangers on.
The hangers on. That's where it could get a little bit dicey still, even if you are, in your deep down a good person. But yeah, I think that's what every coach in America is trying to figure out right now.
Speaking of which, John Bolster, $1.99 super chat. John, thank you. Avoiding divas is very important in recruiting, which kind of goes back to what you said. You probably know if they're one well before there's any type of NIL. And Martin77 with a nice super chat. Tim Tebow for president.
I will more than likely be on the other side of that.
And there
one.
are people who, by the way, agree or disagree with you on Tim Tebow in the comments about the fundraisers and stuff like that.
I'll make a blanket statement. it's not just him. He just seems to be the one who's the most popular with it. But if you make $50,000 for speaking at a church when that church could give $50,000 to people who need it, it bothers me. So it maybe bothers me more in the church, but it does bother me a little bit that you would make money off that.
How do you know he's never given that back or not accepted it non gratis? We don't know that.
I don't know that, but I do know.
He might have done that more times than we can think.
Yeah. But again, if you're...
And he's much farther down the list than, like, I don't know, every celebrity in the world who gets, like, $10,000 gift bags at the award show nobody watches, even though they've already made, like, we could really, if we want to get into that, you know.
Yeah, we could. And in fact, we have the Academic All-Stars banquet, and some of those who we've given checks from anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 or whatever. You know what? A lot of them, have, as they're walking out the door, go, this is a great program, you keep this.
And I wanted to go back to the USC NIL thing, and I said, you know, what is my question is, you know, not like my question with that is, what is it about that group in particular that USC does not like?
Yeah.
That's what my question about it is, because I don't deny that Lincoln Riley might be wary of the fact that that collective could go across the line or could cross the line and he gets in trouble. He and USC get in trouble as a result of their actions, right? So I'm not denying that. But what is it about that group when everybody's wanting more NIL action and more collectives and all this stuff? What is it about that group that they're worried about?
Remember, one of the guys fell out of favor with them about 10 years ago, which is a lot longer ago than when they had their issues with Reggie Bush and company, because that was 17 years ago.
But I wanted to clarify where I was coming from with that. Yeah.
Saban Warwick with another super chat. Jeez. You don't have to do that, but thank you, buddy. Hey, Smokey, or hell, I'm from Pittsburgh without the H, Texas. Had a thought about the Big 12 branding as the blue-collar conference because there are no blue bloods. And that could be who they are before maybe that's what their reputation and their MO will be, or their whoever they are, who they define themselves as. By the way, Pittsburgh, Texas, 1980 football team had one of the greatest high school football defenses ever in the state of Texas. Byron Linwood, Ken Reeves was on that team, among some others as well.
Yeah, I mean, they are certainly a bit more blue blood than others. And, you know, the whole part of the map that they cover, they definitely have some blue collar ties there as well. I think it will be interesting to see kind of how they do brand themselves moving forward, because it's not so much of a simple geography with the new additions. It spreads out a little further. You know, you get a little deeper into the Midwest, into the East, into the Southeast and all of that. So, you know, do they maintain the kind of status quo identity they've had outside of like Texas, basically, where it's Texas schools and Midwestern schools? You know, now it's going to be a little further spread out, but are you still blue collar? I mean, I definitely think that the route that Houston and BYU and UCF and Cincinnati have taken is definitely, you know, that of a just keep your head down and work, and then, you know, rise yourselves up from nothing to being now in a power conference. So I think there's some blue collar to that as well. But, you know, ultimately Brett Yormark's going to be the one that's, you know, pulling the trigger on the new marketing campaign that Mack Rhodes referenced and whatever that looks like. And I'm very interested to see how the Big 12 presents itself moving forward, because they are in need of establishing an identity and being proud of that identity and marketing that identity the same way we've seen a couple of other conferences, whether intentional or not on their part, get marketed by the networks that they're connected to. And the Big 12's had none of that over the last several years.
And Yormark has said that they are going to be aggressive with that. By the way, there's some more chats on many things. Paul's going back and forth with Tim Tebow fans or not. Yeah, and there was one comment about that Tim Tebow's better than anyone ever played at Florida State. I'll take Warwick Dunn against anybody.
I'll take Deion Sanders and Derek Brooks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know.
All right, so
I'll take Javon Curse as a better player at Florida State.
Charlie Ward.
Yeah. Thank you to Saban Warwick for the super chats, to John Bolster for the super chats, to Chris as well, and Martin77 for the super chat. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, having the Make This the Summer event on the new 2022 Ram trucks, designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. Legendary award-winning trucks give you the first-class feel. Luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom storage, plus surround view camera options that you expect from a premium truck. And you look at now the way that they put together these trucks and all of the storage they have that used to just be metal, and now these little areas that you could put all sorts of different things. It's amazing what they have learned over the years. Also, the summer event, including the incredible lineup of new 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, the Renegade Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe from Jeep. These vehicles, power, style, smooth ride you expect from a Jeep. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with third row as well. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ted Teague, tell him I said hi. Great dude, the general manager, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Corral on 2nd and 15 as they're chopping down on his legs, and then they take him down high as well. Ika finished it.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Jason Shear, Wildcat Authority, covers Arizona, has been on with us a couple different times since the USC-UCLA story popped a little over what it's been, I guess, a month ago. Jason, thanks for your time. How you been, man?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and of course, this has been something that a lot of people have. Wait a minute, this is our turf. This is who's better, whatever. But right now, Arizona's practicing as well, and I guess football's on the mind. But what did, at least the story from a couple of nights ago, involving the Big Ten, what message do you think that may have sent the Pac-12?
It's really interesting because there's multiple ways to look at it. But for me, it kind of sent the message to the Pac-12 that it's up next, and that, it basically, it's not coming close to the Big Ten. I mean, that doesn't surprise anyone. The money isn't going to be anywhere close to what the Big Ten or SEC is going to make. It probably will never get there. But it's a message that they basically, they need to figure this out sooner than later. And I'm not saying that anything's imminent, but if you're the Pac-12, you want to get this thing figured out because the Big Ten is making so much money. And again, the Big Ten, if they call any of these schools in the Pac-12, they're coming right over. And so if you're the Pac-12, you want to try to get this secured and do the best deal that you can.
Do you feel there's a disconnect between what fans want and what the administration wants?
I think in some places there probably are. And I think the biggest issue is, at the end of the day, the admin looks beyond football for most of the Pac-12 schools. And there's the academics, there's the research money and all that. And I don't think the average fan looks at that. The average fan looks at, if Washington and Oregon leave this conference, it's dead. So, Arizona fans, for the most part, are saying, look, we don't want to wait around for other schools. Stanford probably feels comfortable in its future no matter what. Utah probably feels pretty good, but there's other schools like an Oregon State and a Washington State that, they want to stay in the Pac-12 because that's basically their only choice. And so I think admin probably looks at more stuff than the average, casual fan looks at.
So, Jason, that leads me to the burning question I think a lot of people have right now. If the Big Ten signs this deal, gets it all done. I mean, they've been teasing it for so long at this point, but if they actually do get it done here in the next couple of weeks, and that is what it is, every team's making however many millions of dollars, and there you have it. And then it is the Pac-12's turn. Are Oregon, Washington, Cal, Arizona, whoever, are they all in with each other? Or how does that work out in terms of not only staying together for the near term, but what does the long term look like then?
Yeah, it's going to get real interesting because once the Big Ten deal is over, we're assuming, all the stories are true and ESPN is shut out. Basically, everyone has a decision to make. Is ESPN going to be able to offer, to me, the biggest question is ESPN going to be able to offer enough money to incentivize Oregon and Washington signing a GOR and locking themselves into the conference for, more than 5 years? If they do, and if Oregon and Washington are willing to agree to that, I think the Pac-10 stays together, all the schools sign, everyone's happy. If ESPN or whoever it is doesn't offer enough money and those schools don't lock themselves into the Pac-12, I think we're back to kind of every man for himself, where if you're in Arizona, why are you staying in the conference knowing that Oregon and Washington, again, could leave? It may not be imminent, but when we do this whole thing, 2 years from now with Notre Dame and all that, and what happens if Oregon and Washington want to leave in 2 years? You may have missed your opportunity. So, it really lays in the hands still of, I think, Washington, Oregon, and ESPN. And it's really going to come down to how motivated ESPN is to make a good enough offer to the Pac-12.
So, Jason, what do you think the unity between the schools is now? If you had to give it a 1 to 10,
I still think you have the Oregon-Washington problem, and I think there's a fracture within the conference because the conference is basically not hiding the fact that it's relying on those two schools. And then you have the Washington State and Oregon State, which is cool with relying on those two schools because they don't have a choice. You have a Cal who doesn't care a lot about athletics, so it could go either way for them, and they probably won't mind. But then you have an Arizona, a Utah, et cetera, that are saying, if Oregon and Washington are getting a piece of the pie, let's say you're Arizona, you're probably the best basketball school in the conference now, especially once UCLA leaves. It's probably Arizona and Oregon. And so if you're going to do unequal revenue sharing, Arizona wants a piece of that pie as it relates to basketball. And I think it's you're together until you're not. And I think that when that ESPN offer comes, that'll decide it. So right now, are they together, and do they want to see the Pac-12 survive? Sure, because if it survives, it means that everyone got paid the amount of money that they want. And at the end of the day, that's true. That's what they want. They all want their certain amount of money because that's what this is all about. So they're together for right now, but as soon as ESPN offers or there's unequal revenue sharing or that becomes a topic again, or Oregon and Washington won't sign, all of a sudden they're not as together as they want people to believe.
Jason Scheer, again, Wildcat Authority with us, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Jason, are you paying as close attention? I think in the big picture, everybody's paying attention to Notre Dame and what they've got coming up potentially with the Big Ten or staying independent. But how much of an impact do you think that has? Obviously, there's a lot of rumors about, they get Notre Dame and then they bring in Oregon and Washington or Cal or Stanford or whatever. But is that necessarily interlinked in your mind? Does one have to do with the other, or could that just be a completely separate deal? How do you sort of view that out there?
Yeah, personally, I think it's pretty linked. And the thing is, I don't think Notre Dame's in any rush. They still have 2 years left. So theoretically, they could take 2 years to make a decision, which is kind of why I mentioned before, unless Oregon and Washington are willing to lock in beyond those 2 years,
right.
It's kind of, what are we doing this for if you're an Arizona type? But, the Big Ten could just be done for now and wait until the next round. If they do add Notre Dame, maybe it's a certain thing where, they add Stanford, Oregon, and Washington. And, to me, they're pretty linked because I don't think the Big Ten will add Washington, Oregon, those schools until Notre Dame has decided. I think it's perfectly fine waiting a few years for Notre Dame because of that added money and the fact that it's no secret Notre Dame is the prize right now. That's what the ACC wants to hold on to Notre Dame. The Big Ten wants to add Notre Dame, and it's everyone's kind of waiting for them. And I'm not confident the Big Ten moves until it knows what Notre Dame's doing, and that could be a few years.
The college football world literally is waiting on Notre Dame, and yet we're supposed to believe they're going to be forced into something. That's what I have a hard time reconciling with. But, Jason, what are your thoughts? What are maybe thoughts you've gathered as well about a future Pac-10 plus, a San Diego State, plus, a team like that or a combination of teams like that?
I think the biggest issue is ESPN going to make it worth it? Because these Pac-12 schools, if they add another school, their money's going down. Now, if ESPN says, look, you add San Diego State, we're going to up the offer, that's fine. They would do it. But they're not going to add schools that are all of a sudden going to make their piece of the pie smaller. It just doesn't make any sense because then you're kind of back at square one. If there's any team that I think is getting heavily looked at for expansion, it would be San Diego State. I'm not sure how serious other, schools are in that conversation. Do they stay with the one? Do they add another like a Fresno State or an SMU? That remains up in the air. But again, it has to be financially worth it, or else I don't think the schools in the conference now have an issue staying at 10 if the money's better in that way.
All right, so what do you think, Jason, is the number that if, in fact, the Pac-12 stays intact with who they are now without UCLA and USC, is there a number per year distribution based on the next TV deal that has to be at a certain point? Otherwise, there's no chance?
Yeah, from what I've heard, the number that's been floated is mid-30 to low 40 would be, comfortable. Obviously, they want it more, closer to 40. But if we're talking like the 24, 28, the 30, that's not good enough. I've heard mid-30s would get schools to kind of really, a school like Arizona to really pay attention and, kind of think twice. But if ESPN comes back and they're offering, 28 to 30, I don't see why any of those schools are going to sign on into a deal that locks them into that.
How much of the fact that they had such a dip in distribution because of COVID, and then even last year the Pac-12 network we know is a mess, how much does that make it even more desperate that number does go up?
Yeah, it makes it is a very big deal. When UCLA joined the Big Ten, the story was about UCLA's debt and how that's going to help them get out of it. But they're not the only school in debt. The Pac-12 lost quite a bit of money the last couple of years. These athletic departments, Arizona's is in an awful shape, but it's losing money. And football, at the end of the day, is what pays the bills. And so if the money is not there, it becomes a very, dangerous situation for these athletic departments. And so, if that number is lower than these schools want, it becomes something where all these schools kind of have to, look out for themselves and figure out what the healthiest situation is for their athletic department.
All right, Jason, I got another question for you. Let's say that for whatever reason, and again, it could be months down the road, who knows? We don't know. I mean, Big Ten, you would think that's coming out pretty soon. But let's say there is a wobble, and there's always this turf war between the Pac-12 and Big 12 fan bases, and even, as you know, even sometimes the media, which is sometimes it's silly, but people have what they love to protect. I hope both conferences survive. Is Arizona ready to pull the trigger? Because you kind of alluded to that to us a few weeks ago. Let's say the Pac-12 doesn't hear what they want to hear in the next month or two. Is Arizona ready to pull the trigger and join the Big 12 if offered?
I believe so. I think if the numbers aren't there, and from what I've heard, they may get an initial number, as soon as next week. And once that Big Ten deal, ESPN is basically waiting for that, and it can come pretty soon after. But I believe that if Arizona doesn't get a number that it likes, and Brett Yormark comes in there with Fox, whatever it may be, and says, you're going to make this amount of money, and it's a pretty decent difference, I think Arizona's ready. Now, if it's like a $2 million difference, I don't think that's enough. But if we're talking $5 to $7 million or $10 million, I think that's enough. I think it has to be enough for the travel and all that to be made up, and stability is also a big part of it. And so I think a lot of it is on Yormark's plate, what he can convince Arizona about their future and all that. But if these ESPN numbers come back a second round and they're not there, I think Arizona becomes very, very serious about making that jump.
Are they connected at the hip with anybody else left in the conference?
From what I understand, the Big 12 would love it if Utah came over as well. I don't think Arizona's as connected with ASU as I once heard, but I believe the Big 12 really would like to add Utah in that market. I also think that it feels if it takes Utah out of the Pac-12, that's a pretty killer shot. But, I'm still of the belief that Arizona can't do it alone. There has to be at least one other Pac-12 school, whether that's Utah or ASU. It's got to be one other school. I would be surprised if there's a scenario unless and that goes back, if the money's that bad, I don't think it'll become an issue. I think they'll be able to get another school, but I don't necessarily know if they're completely tied to having it. I just think it'll naturally kind of happen.
Thank you for the time, Jason. Appreciate it. Good luck going forward, handling it, covering it, being a part of it, his own opinion as well, which is great, as everybody has a right to what they think based on what they hear, their own sources. And Jason Scheer. Yeah, one of the questions on the chat was, I thought that there was already a number, 24.5. That's not set in stone. That was something that was popped out there, but that's not something that has been like, that is the number that each year the Big 12 or the Pac-12 would get in distribution.
It's kind of like the Big Ten schools all making $100 million or more apiece, that we've heard that.
And it could be 75.
And we don't know that for sure, though. We have no idea until they actually announce the deals what that actually looks like.
And right now, based on what the deal looks like, if it stands in this, they're not getting, the Big Ten's not getting 100. They're getting, a little less than 80, at the top end of the deal. So still awesome, but not 100.
Yeah, I need to see those streaming services and how much. I mean, they're still, I think that's what Kevin Warren's been doing, is he's been pumping that number up even more and more and just dragging it out. I think, certainly he's probably in roundabout ways made some moves to try to throw the alert out there to anybody who might be interested or isn't interested enough. Like, hey, you better get on board. He's creating interest. That's what he's done. He's created interest in the brand of the Big Ten, and they're going to walk away with a fat paycheck no matter what. But I do think they're trying to squeeze it as dry as they possibly can. And, if you can get last week of the, your talks, you get that big streaming deal that suddenly pushes it over, another hurdle, then bam, congratulations. So I think they're in the midst of that, and everybody's waiting on that. I mean, really are, because the Pac-12 can't, in theory, really move to do too much until we know what the Big Ten does. Same thing with, Notre Dame's place in this deal. I guess they're the first domino, and then the Big Ten deal, and then, the Pac-12 and so on and so forth.
Garrett, go ahead. Finish it.
But it would be, quite interesting to see the Pac-12. I'm quite interested to see what their deal ends up being because of all the talk that we've seen the last couple of weeks of what that number comes out to. I really am.
Garrett, you have that image, the NIL club, the Waco NIL club. Okay, this came out earlier today. You saw a lot of players on Baylor's football team kind of teasing this the last day or so. Hey, big NIL news. This is the Waco NIL club. Our team has come together to launch the Waco NIL club. If you're a fan looking to support our team, this is how you can do it. It goes on to explain what it is. Waco NIL Club is a membership-based community that allows fans to financially support and interact with our team. Fans can join Waco NIL Club right now by making a monthly commitment, and then it goes on to say kind of what it equals. Financially support our team, ensure we have a leader in the era of the NIL. Meet and greets, Q's and A's, questions and answers, film breakdowns, player-created content, community message board, and chat to connect with the squad. NIL Club, again, the Waco NIL Club. I reached out to a couple of people at Baylor to ask them about this. They can't be involved, but the players can. And who's the one? Was it Derek King? That was like one of the first ones you said earlier today?
Derek King, Mackenzie Milton, they did this. There's other places, I'm forgetting the players, but they did it and to open up for their universities. And they had, I know Derek King had some alumni backing. I'm not sure what these guys have here, but at least it's a collective of the whole team. So this is kind of a subscription service that's direct to them, that they're all going to split together. So if they get a big enough donor to say like, well, I'll give, $500,000, then they're going to split that $500,000 75 ways or whatever it is.
All right. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
This month, Allen Samuels is having the Make This the Summer event on the new 2022 Ram trucks. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, these legendary award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel. Luxurious leather-trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options that you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 Big 12, Pac-12 thoughts on the Big 12 or Big 10 TV deal. Just kind of sum up, and I almost did one conference or the other, but they really are kind of in the same boat on this and negotiating their future TV deals. Advantages and disadvantages abound, and we can get into that whole Twitter argument another day, but just for the sake of argument, these are similar thoughts that both of them will have. Number 5, this seems like good news, but is it?
No.
But is it?
No.
Because it seems like good news that you have the biggest college football bidder normally with some money to spend and some programming holes. But is that good news? Because what are they going to do? And how much do they really value you? Also knowing that, they can drag it out and there's not a whole ton of other competitors like they'll have. And ESPN has bid against themselves before. They lost money on their first NBA deal because it was...
Yeah, that was a different regime, though.
But,
that's when they monopolized sports, and then they ended up getting bit in the butt because of it, and really gave rise to all the other networks to, get into the game. But, that's definitely, I think, that was the first thing I thought when I started seeing the Pac-12 victory laps a couple nights ago was, and I don't mean it was just them solely. I know there were Big 12 people, too, that thought, oh, this is great news that ESPN's out of it with the Big 10. And so, maybe it is, but on the other hand, I need to see more. Again, I need to see this Big Ten deal. I don't think anybody really knows anything until we see what the Big Ten deal is and how that goes. And I know we got like time windows and all of that we have knowledge of, but like, okay, who's in the conference? Who has a chance to join the conference? How in the future could they join the what is the grant of rights for the Pac-12? What all this stuff needs to be answered, but starting with the Big Ten. But yeah, I think everybody's kind of like that. That's why the other night I started seeing victory laps from whether it was a Duck fan or Cyclone fan or whoever, and I'm just like, I need to see more. I need to see more before I feel a certain type of way about this. But it's certainly not terrible news that ESPN's not going to be involved with the Big Ten.
It seems that way, but let's wait and see.
Yeah.
How do you build your brand up? How do you do that? This is the same. I asked Mac this yesterday, and he said, look, the plans are underway because the SEC has had state television and the SEC network and ESPN for years now telling everybody how great it is. And look, there's no denying that it's pretty awesome. But there are things in the SEC that are just like everybody else. The middle and bottom of their conference are just like everybody else's middle and bottom, and the top is pretty awesome. That's where they've been able to kind of fool people in that, oh, the whole conference is great. Well, no. They have really good teams in it. The Big Ten is even more on this in that the conference, out of 16 teams, 7 of those teams are recognizable brands. One of those brands right now, and I don't mean to kick dirt on you, Smokey, is Nebraska, who has not been a bowl game in 5 years.
All you're doing is telling the truth.
So then you got 6. Then the other one, the Michigan, is just now good again for 1 year after being really all over the place and firing a bunch of coaches. So really, who's the brand in the Big Ten? They have one. You're bringing in one USC who was great in the early aughts, but they haven't been great for a long time and have fired a couple coaches. So part of it is building up the brand to be like, man, people really love this. The Big 12 has never done a good job of doing that because in the past, every time they try to say, hey, we're all great, they'd have a stupid way of saying it like one true champion. Or if they tried to build up everybody else, Texas would kind of step in and be like, yeah, but we're here too. And that was the problem. The Pac-12 now, how do you build this brand up and make people see what your good parts are, and you may not have any to build up?
One of the super chats was the blue-collar conference, but it's a much more than that. It's also through social media, through pounding away at who you are and who you want to be. And then you got to go back it up.
Well, you got to go win.
Yeah.
You just go win. And worry about the rest of that. Let your mark worry about commercials and the slogans. But it certainly doesn't help when your previous regime's talking about one true champion and rolling out a whole marketing campaign, and then you don't decide on a champion. Like year one of that campaign, basically. That was the dumbest thing. One true champion. Big letters at Media Day. Big thing on every piece of paper. And then TCU and Baylor share a title. What kind of stupidity is that? Like, that was the dumbest thing. And yet, no wonder people think it's a clown show. Your slogan's one true champion. You can't choose a champion, even though you have a head-to-head. You won't even acknowledge the head-to-head winner. Like, that whole thing.
Which whole thing,
man.
The tiebreakers actually did not reflect head-to-head as the main reason.
Because it didn't have any.
Remember, Bowlesby got pissed when I said, I'm kind of still don't know why he didn't. He goes, that was a part of those. He had to go by the guidelines or whatever you call it.
Okay. The SEC just switched a rule 2 weeks ago to, what was it I was reading? It was I was reading an article a couple weeks ago, and it was maybe it'd been talking about during the COVID period of you needed to have this amount, you needed something, and then they just decided we know there's technically rules in the rule book, but we're just changing it. And they just changed it. Mm-hmm. And he could have done that too.
Yeah.
Nobody would have argued. Nobody said, no, these are the Big 12 rules. We have to abide by these.
Well, and I'll tell you, you said you asked them that question at the time. The day they rolled out the one true champion slogan at Big 12 Media Days, it wasn't 5 seconds before somebody said, well, I've read the rules, and it doesn't appear that that's the case.
Yep.
And
sure
the answer was well.
And then you had Baylor with TCU was one of their once-in-a-lifetime teams.
Maybe it was the Big Ten, but it was something to do with the schedule or it was something. No, it was the Ohio State exception to get into
the championship.
Yes. Yeah. They changed that on the freaking fly. Yeah. Why? Because it benefited the Big Ten. Imagine that. So, no, I will never just go Bowlesby was the greatest because of that thing right there. That was dumb. I don't care how he explained it after the fact. That was dumb. Yeah. And that just recently got shown. But, win games, win championships, and build an identity and stick by that identity. And don't let yourself just get shoved into the locker on television left and right and act like you're a second-class citizen. Stand up for yourself every once in a while. And that was what was so great about Bowlesby is he finally did that at the end.
Yeah.
And everybody loved him for it.
Yeah. Well, and look, the Pac-12 has to do this a lot, too, because the national perception outside of that conference is that they will do whatever the Big Ten tells them to do, and they did it last year. So now, cut your own path, Pac-12. Cut your own path. Number 3, the numbers are lower than $100 million per year. So how can you close the gap? They're not going to close it completely, but can you make it to where it's $25 million and that it's not so bad? Can these two conferences do that? Can that happen? Because $100 million was probably not going to happen for a decade, but 25 you could maybe, especially if you win, if you build up, you can nibble away and balance that out.
Whoever among those two conferences can get that to where at least it's not just a massive chasm of difference will be the one that survives.
And I wonder, okay, if you make $70 million more than another conference, what is your advantage there? Is it that you're going to have diamond-made facilities as opposed to concrete and metal-made facilities? Are you going to buy the players on your team? Are you going to pay them so much money, $2 million apiece for starters, that nobody can compete with that? So that even then, so the running back at Baylor, who's not going to see the field at Ohio State, but hey, he'll make $1 million, but he'll never have any NFL film because he's not going to play because they just, how does that work? How much of a gap can there be to where it's you can't even compete with this? What does that mean? That's what I've been trying to figure out here lately.
Yeah, that's the gap I'm wondering if they can close. Number 2, does this mean that both conferences are now all in with ESPN? Are they, what do the other networks take away now? Because CBS is only doing one thing anyway, right? So now that they were just doing the SEC, now they're probably just doing the Big Ten, unless they're having a big strategic shift and they're going to throw a Pac-12 or Big 12 game on at a different time slot. That doesn't appear likely. 2, what does Fox have left after all this? What do they want? And where are those other bidders? So it might mean you could be like the SEC and be all in. One of these leagues could be all in with ESPN.
Wouldn't be amazing.
It would be weird if it was the Big 12 given
what happened.
They'll
have Fox too, right?
They might. I mean, again,
how does
this? You might. Yeah, you would think so, but you'll see. How does Fox decide to fill a lot of these windows?
Well, they haven't committed to carrying a ton more games.
No.
So they still have inventory as well.
I'd say no to this just because, I guess the streaming, I just feel like you got to have more than one partner in this day and age. So, especially if you're going to be a bigger conference, well, I guess that won't be until
The SEC just has one partner.
Yeah. I mean, that's also them, though. I think the Big 12 is going to probably have to have multiple to create the sort of target number that they would like. But, yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, because the SEC is exclusive. Does this mean other people go exclusive? The ACC is more or less exclusive, too, with them. So we'll see. And how can you stave off the Big Ten? And this is more of a Pac-12 question, but how can you stave them off? What can you promise your people that will ultimately make them say it's not worth it?
I don't think.
I don't know if there's anything.
I don't know if you can answer that because you don't know what's coming at you or what's about to be released. But I think that's going to a lot of praying, and I don't mean that to be sarcastic, and just somehow hope that things work out. But how do you stave them off? Maybe you get lucky.
You're lucky, or you're not going to. I mean, basically, you're lucky in that they don't care for any of your teams. Basically, is what you have to hope for, because it's just impossible to imagine a scenario where Oregon says, "No, you know what, Big Ten, we're staying right here in the Pac-12." Like, I have a hard time seeing that, and I would say that about any Big 12 school. If Baylor got a call from the Big Ten today, would I blame them if they went? No, I would not. Or TCU or whoever? No, I would not. So, yeah, I think you got to just cross your fingers and hope that it just works out and that they're not interested in your teams after all. But other than that, I don't really see a scenario. And by the way, the Big Ten changed their rule twice in 3 weeks for Ohio State.
No, they did.
They changed it on December the 9th 2 years ago. They'll let them play in the conference championship game. And then they changed the COVID rules where you had to have you were required to miss 17 days if you had tested positive. They had dropped that from 21 days so that it lined up to where they were able to pass that. So Ohio State changed 2 rules, one of them involving COVID in the championship game.
You want to know who runs the Big Ten?
But Bob Bowlesby couldn't pick a head-to-head, even though they played.
Right,
so I'll never forget
We're
that.
late.
No.
Levi, Emery, Garrett. Jack wasn't here, but he was. He just says he didn't see us, and we didn't see him. Provo NIL Club was released about an hour ago for Brigham Young and all of that. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Our sponsors, we appreciate all of them from day one till now.
JoJo Earl, Bama wide receiver, out 6 to 8 weeks. Injuries piling up.
Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.